All right. If anybody's watching this now, we're going to have a new link posted, and then we're going to be in good shape. We decided to shift it over to Zoom in order to get this right. Yeah, people are now seeing this. And here's what's different. Here's what's different here. All right. For those of you watching who've already shifted over, I'm now posting the links to the new to the new link for the stream has been posted in the old one, in the old stream place. So you're going to be, this is obviously all going to be edited out. We've got Colin waiting in the wings. It's about to go down, probably like 5 minutes or so. All right. All right. Let's see. I'm going to post this on Twitter also. All right. It's so ridiculous that this is just on the air, me typing shit, and now I have to like do crowd work while I do this. Change link for Colin Marston's stream. Let's see if people are coming over here. All right, here we go. We've got Juan, we've got Gerald. All right, so people are coming over here, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm going to do more than the usual preamble in order to let this happen here. All right, I'm going to let Colin in here into the little Zoom meeting. Where's my boy Colin? Admit Colin. Oh shit. Looking like things are working, going more towards working. I'm gonna get
Check.
a different. Yo, what's up, man?
Okay, audio, video.
Yeah, great.
Any smoother? I look smoother to myself.
It's definitely smoother. It's absolutely smoother. It sounds
Professional.
smoother. Yeah.
Fucking professional over here.
No, this is way better. I'm watching the YouTube the place where this is being streamed, the site for the new stream. Now I'm watching it. Okay, here we go. I'm just making sure that the lineup, that the layout is good.
Sick. Your sound is way better too now.
Yeah, I wonder what that was all about. But in any case,
I think it was just the slowness of the connection. It was just having trouble processing all the info because it was glitching out in a digital way, not in like a bad mic or acoustical way.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. We're almost ready to talk here. It's getting to that point of actually.
Dude, I'm so sorry that I'm like technologically incompetent.
Nah, man, you know what? I think actually it's funny. Well, because we're going to talk about technicality.
That is the irony.
Yeah. Well, I think those of us who spent our youth learning how to play, ridiculous spider hands guitar stuff, we did that instead of
fucked
doing
around with technology.
with actual technology. Because I mean, dude, playing insane stuff on an instrument, that's like archaic technology.
It's not technological, like
at all. Yeah, you know. Although I did look up well, I've actually looked it up before, but I brushed up on, looking up techne, in Greek. I mean, just a way of craft, I guess, way of doing things.
So it's actually not exactly, it's not the root of technological. I mean, I guess it's like the full word is technical, but like that's even like incorrect applied to the music. It's like an emotional way of describing it. It's not
right. I'm right. Right. None of these things, right. To call something technical,
it's meaningless in terms of saying it's dense or saying it's complex or any of those. It doesn't mean any of those things. It's sort of meaningless.
Yeah,
but we all have agreed that it means complicated, dense music.
Of what it means. Yeah. I mean, I guess one should say it's like music where technique is foregrounded deliberately or not.
I didn't even think of the word technique. Like
I know. Yeah, because that's the only word. That's the only word it should. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, is the word is technique. I totally want to. Yeah, maybe we'll come around to that because I want to go deep on that just like as a issue. I don't know if issue is the right word. A topic, because it's like I bet we both have these. Oh, you getting blazed, man? You're doing a little
tube action.
Yeah, when you can't see what it is, it looks very like Frank Booth, it's straight.
Yeah. That's Blue Velvet, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I watched that movie in the NYU library because I was like right before Netflix, and I was just like, oh yeah, Blue Velvet, and I was like, I bet they have that in the library. I just like went and watched it in one of those like kiosks by myself.
Oh, fun, man. That's fun, dude. The university library. Dude,
I miss that shit. I miss going to like check out like the classical records and just like
that's where I learned so much about classical music, man. Was just taking. I mean, that's how I learned how to read music. Was taking Bach out of the library, and just one note at a time.
That's sick.
Just doing it, 20 minutes a day, couple years,
I remember finding the Barrio violin sequenza score there, which I was like I really wanted to check that out.
Barrio is so bonkers, man. The oboe sequenza is my favorite. Like that's just like it's
the oboe one is sick, and then there's the bassoon one that just kind of sounds like a motor starting up the whole time.
I think somehow I don't remember that one. I would remember it.
It's like less musically serious. It's a little like, but I kind of like it as like a. It's the attitude of it.
Man, I heard something about Barrio. Fuck. How sensitive are you to cruelty to animals? Hearing about probably pretty.
I've been vegetarian since I was a teenager.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe should I not even say the Barrio story?
No, you can talk about it. I thought you meant like like how much do you care about it?
Yeah. No. Because Kirsten, like if she can't, if there's cruelty to animals in a thing, she's like physically like she can't hear it and stuff. It's like some people have. So anyway, Barrio apparently was like teaching his music theory class, composition or something at a conservatory, and he came in holding like a baby bird. Babe, if you're watching this, turn this shit off. He comes in holding a baby like a little bird or whatever, and he just comes in, and the first thing he does first day is he crushes the bird against a blackboard to make some point about how serious music theory is. I mean,
okay. It's like murder.
It's like
murdering an animal.
I mean, it's not good. It's not good.
I mean, hey, plenty of musicians I love are horrible people or would do things I strongly disagree with.
True. So. But I don't know though. It's like in the technical, in my experience, people in the world of hyper technical metal and stuff, I've seen less evil in that world. I mean, I've seen less.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
dude, that's some Watain kind of shit.
That's more Watain level. That's more. you're like working your way to Varg. You're not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're like, maybe if I do this with birds enough, I can get, move up to like actual like bros, you know. from bird from
Birds to
birds
bros, dude.
from birds to bros, man. You can't just yeah.
Oof. But yeah, no, that's a brutal story.
Yeah, it's
I didn't.
fucked up.
I actually didn't know anything about Barrio, the guy, really.
That's the only thing I know about him. I mean, all those dudes were like really fucked. Like, I mean, or not
They would
all,
have had,
but there's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, like
eccentric dudes to at the very least,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I want to hear. I just want to make sure before we start really, really talking. Who is all right? We got the fellas. We got the fellas in here. Hopefully we'll have the ladies as well. But definitely got homies.
Story of my life.
Definitely got homies. We're the homettes. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, dude. What's going on? We did a little bit of what's going on with Colin a second ago, but that was before we were going live. What's up with your weekend? What's up with your day? You told me a little bit.
What's been going on is the Gorguts shit. So yeah, those guys were just down for like our last practice before the show kind of coming up next month in Philly, which is this festival, this 2-day festival. We're playing the Friday the 14th. And we're doing this. It's fun because, so for one thing, Gorguts, we haven't practiced together in 7 or 8 years. So
I forgot that. Really? Is it?
Yeah, we played. The last tour we did together was 2017. I did like 3 or 4 tours with them that year. Early in the year, it was like a ton of touring. Then Luke wanted to do another Europe tour, and I was like, basically, unless we change the set list, I'm not doing it. So they did that tour with a fill-in bass player, that guy Dominic Forrest from Montreal, who's been in all the lefty bassist who's been in Beyond Creation and Augury and Atheretic and like all these Covidus and all the bands from up there, who was sort of on deck to fill in for me years ago when we just talked about the potentiality of me not being available for a tour because of the fucking studio or something.
Yeah.
So he was already on deck. So that was like not even a weird thing. But that was the last tour they did. And then after that, it was like, Luke's like, okay, we're going to go back and I'm going to write new stuff and we're going to pick up and keep the band going. And then that just never happened, and 7 years went by.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, dude, time's been going by so fast. I can't, you know what I mean? I'm like,
obviously the pandemic's a factor in there, but it was already, 3 years before that we kind of been in flux.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I saw Gorguts at Le Poisson Rouge. I guess that must have been 2016, whenever Pleiades Dust came out.
We did 2016 there, and then we also did 2017. Do you remember who was opening? Do you remember if it was Artificial Brain or if it was Brain? That would have been Intronaut and Brain Tentacles in 2016.
Yes. It was Intronaut and Brain Tentacles. Yeah. Because I was seeing Artificial Brain a ton around then, but it was not with
the next year. We were supposed to tour with Defeated Sanity, and they couldn't do it at the last minute because of visa bullshit. Fuck immigration, everything. Anyway,
dude.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast. So we ended up only doing it with Exist, which was Max, who was going to be doing the vocals for Defeated on that tour of them doing their like tech death album.
Okay.
So it was just a 2-band tour, and that was basically the last show or something I played with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Luke, clearly taking time off from the band Luke is no stranger to that, and it works for the history of the band. It's like has to be this way for it to be what it is, and it's fucking deep.
That's his vibe. He puts the band aside for years and like recharges and then like comes back, and he's just so maybe deliberate's the wrong word, but his just pace of working on it is just like inverted from my experience, the way I like to work on music. So it definitely takes getting used to.
Dude, I mean, with Krallice, when I try to catch, look this way, every 6 months when I catch up on the 10 new Krallice records that came out since the last one, I'm like, what did they do? They just press stop on the recording, the last thing, and just had
Press
lunch and
record
started
again.
writing the next.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like, how does that
We're
work?
always pressing record.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, because with that, exactly, because with that band, I mean, it's like there's been some years where we don't put anything out, but usually it's an album a year.
Okay. Yeah.
And then with Dysrhythmia and Arctopus, it's like 3 years between albums, maybe 4 years. With Behold, we've had like drummer changes, so that always sets things back. But and then I have all these side recording only projects, which sort of just make stuff instantaneously. So yeah, it's this Gorguts is just like, that's the Oort cloud if we're using the solar system as a comparison. That's the distance away from the process of like the
Oort.
Other.
Well, you said Oort cloud.
The Oort cloud, where like all the comets are. That's just like basically interstellar space at that point, but it's still like the shit so the comets come through like every couple thousand years, like that's their orbit instead of 1 year.
Okay, right on.
So yeah, so exactly. So it's not weird for Luke to take like 7 years and like try to recharge. So he hasn't been writing nothing. It's cool. I just talked to him about it yesterday. He has actually been writing riffs here and there over the years, and he said he just like came back to some of them and was excited about it. So there is like stuff in the works, I guess. And I even wrote 2 full songs, one back in 2012, before Colored Sands even came out. That record was delayed for 2 years. So I wrote a song because I was impatient. And then 2019, same thing. I was just impatient again and wrote another song. So there's like actually like there's some stuff. And I think the idea now is Luke's kind of getting a sense of the direction he wants. And once he figures that out, he's going to kind of see what fits. So I think that's cool. I totally respect that.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. Because we should we got it, because I still don't even really know the behind the scenes stuff of how you work in Gorguts, how Gorguts functions, like, since you've been in the band, which has been like over, 10 years now.
Been fucking 15.
Dude, it's funny because I still think of it. When you and Kevin got asked to be in Gorguts, it was like your boys like joining the NBA. Like, you know what I mean? It was like one of those things. It was like, it was like, okay.
Dude, Colin and Kevin got drafted.
Yeah, it was really like that. You know what I mean? And when we were playing, we were just all fucking around on the courts. We were like, yeah. Of course, you didn't stop doing anything else either. You kept doing everything else. No,
but I agree. That is what it felt like. It felt surreal then, and it feels surreal now, and it's still like at this point, yeah, it feels like an old band that I've had for a while, but it also is just like, wait, what the fuck? I'm not in.
You're in Gorguts. I know, it's crazy. Well, we should a little bit. This is this live stream. It's for people who know you, but then I like to sort of have it be enough background that someone who doesn't know about this can sort of enter into here. Okay, so it's like we're talking with so Colin, immensely prolific artist in the world of metal and outside of the more experimental corners of the metal world, as a bassist, guitarist, producer, vocalist, and composer in general. And Colin is a member of Gorguts. We're going to be discussing Gorguts' 1998 record, Obscura, which is one of the most important records in the history of death metal. And Colin was not yet in Gorguts at that time. But
Colin was high school.
Colin was in high school at that time, as I was. I think we're the same age pretty much. So yeah. So this is, that's what I'm psyched to talk about this, because it's like obviously a super important record to metal, and to you, your angle on it is good. I'm interested because it's like that record. Well, people talk about, because it's so important, I feel like it's sort of implied that it's the best Gorguts record. I don't know if I actually think that. It's the most like when I think of Gorguts, I think of Obscura.
It's the most distinctive album.
It's most distinctive, and maybe had the most direct like impact on the history that you could say. But actually,
well, the history of outside of metal for sure, but the history within death metal, no.
Interesting.
The first two albums had huge impact within death metal, but not outside of death metal. And Obscura had this huge impact outside of metal.
Dude,
So
okay.
it's pretty interesting how that worked.
I really want to fucking talk about
And
that.
I also want to say, I think it's not the favorite album of most Gorguts fans.
Okay. So I actually, yeah.
That could go either way, I think. But like,
Okay,
I
because
think
yeah.
of the like death metal head Gorguts fans, it's usually not the favorite one.
Okay. See, I may be just projecting what I kind of think other people think. Because, well, I guess because for years it was like, well, for years it was just that and From Wisdom to Hate. And and then the long break, and then Gorguts with you guys. I'm not just saying this to be nice. I mean, I actually would I listen to Colored Sands more. Actually, I mean, I feel like
it's probably a more listenable album.
I feel like listening to it more. Yeah. But yeah, man. So like, okay. First, I want to talk about how you got, when you first heard Obscura, how you got into it, where you were at when you heard it, its role in your life. I'll chime in with its role in my life, etc. Then we should just talk about what the record sounds like. Oh, I wanted to play some of it for those who don't know, but the thing is, sometimes that gets into, we'll do the window sharing thing. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, man, when did you first hear Obscura? Like, how did this come into your life?
So yeah, I'll start with a little bit before that. The first time I heard Gorguts was actually Wisdom, right when Wisdom came out in 2000. I had like just moved to New York to go to engineering school. My buddy George Corrine, who was like my music friend, my only friend that I grew up with, basically, that we had these really experimental bands together. He was like briefly going to school in Philly at UArts and met this guy, Alex Nagel, this insane guitar player.
Yeah.
And composer and just crazy, like cool, creative mind.
He's a very original cat.
Nagel was into Gorguts, and he was like, he said, I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but he said something like, this is the future of metal, like of death metal, or
Yeah.
And so he played me. I think he sent me or something, Inverted and Behave Through Mythos, the first two songs from Wisdom. And I remember thinking like, okay, like I'm not that into the sound of this, like the recording and stuff, because I'm in recording school. I'm thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
I was not like ready for that sound, but musically I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm completely on board with this. Like this is great.
Yeah.
So then fast forward just a few months, I think it was like summer, for my first summer from my first year in school, I was back in Philly, and I had made friends with Kevin Huffnagel, because the band I was playing drums in high school with George, we had sort of a prog band with keyboards and drums, and George was on bass. We had made friends with Stinking Lizaveta, a local instrumental band.
I remember
asked them to do a show. They were like, yeah, come do a show at our practice space. We'll get Dysrhythmia to play. And it was Dysrhythmia at the time was a brand new band. It was like their second show they'd ever done. And they completely blew me away at that show. And so I made instant friends with those guys. So I was hanging out with Kevin that summer, and I can't remember if I told him I'd heard Gorguts or not, but he was like, you have to hear Obscura. It's the most insane thing you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
So I have this really clear memory of, it must have been the summer of 2001, sitting in the third floor, Kevin's bedroom, just like sitting on the floor, baking hot in this room, listening to Obscura. And I don't remember if we listened to it all the way through, probably not, because it's a super long album, but I remember listening to most of it, and it just, just completely destroying me. I mean,
yeah. But I mean, you were deep on death metal. You were making heavy.
I was not deep on death metal. I was like, I grew up not really liking any metal except Metallica.
This is interesting, right? But you were doing prog type stuff with
I was into prog, like, yeah, basically. So, really young, I think I heard like The Rite of Spring in music class, and it that was probably the first piece of music that really like struck me. When probably like 7 or something. And then when I started playing guitar around 10 or 11, I was really into shit with like non-distorted guitar. I thought distorted guitar was dumb. I always liked Metallica for some reason. They were like, they got a pass. I was like, no, that's incredible. But I was really into Talking Heads and REM and like Depeche Mode. and
Okay.
like clean guitar and synth shit. And then the band I was playing in with George at the time, our first band, we would practice at the drummer's house, and his dad was a musician and had like he had like a Prophet and a bass and a Marshall half stack and some, cool gear. And he played us like Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii, and he put on Bowie and Eno and then King Crimson. And he started playing King Crimson in the car, like us driving.
And that was it. That was, yeah.
And that was the life-changing band for me.
That's where the notes, yeah, they turned on the faucet of notes and the notes came out.
Yeah, and dude, I think about this a lot now. Like, what better band for a kid getting into music to get into than King Crimson? Because I mean, whatever you think about their actual music, it's a universe of sounds and music. It's like a different lineup on every record. They have ballads, they have composed, dense, modern classical influence shit. They have jazzy shit. They have pure improv always. They always had a mix of pure improv and like rigorous composition.
Yeah.
They were always into the latest music technology and using it in a really creative way, like guitar synths, drum synths, the Mellotron. They had all the latest shit, but they would like not just use it as a background. They would like integrate it and make it
like a composition. Yeah, I mean, Yes, I never like emotionally, like aesthetically got into Yes, but anytime I hear them, it still kind of gets me pumped, kind of along those lines. I mean, it kind of just gets me pumped, like just the level of vision, the execution of the vision, thinking about them as a whole world, as a journey, like you're saying, the different phases and different, I mean, it gets me psyched kind of just as a music. I don't know. Yeah, just
me too. And I always have felt that way about Yes. Like I'm always like, okay, well, this is corny, but like it's fucking awesome. Like, and I'm just down. Like in a way that I had more trouble appreciating Rush when I was young, where I was just like, oh, I just don't know about this band.
I do not like Rush. Oh,
later I came to appreciate them, but I didn't connect with it as a kid. But with Yes, I was always like, I had to take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but I was just down. With Crimson, it was like it had that, but it had way more variety and it got way darker. And so that's where
well, Crimson Crimson has actual stuff in there that I am like emotionally into now. I mean, it's case by case, but like especially the early stuff, there's like
totally. Yeah. For me with them now, it's like I could kind of leave aside a lot of the more traditional song-based stuff, even though I respect what they do with it. But there's certain moments that they're dense compositional moments where I'm like, that's like I feel like that's just as sick now as I felt when I was a kid. And those little moments were the stuff that I was like looking for in other music that I found in Gorguts and in this really dense technical death metal stuff. And so that was my entry into death metal.
Okay, so wait, you said, sorry, your entry to death metal was Gorguts? No, it was a few things right around that.
Yeah, it was Gorguts was one of them. So it was like Morbid Angel. Maybe Incantation I heard back then too. I kind of can't remember. There was this comp called The Heralds of the Oblivion, which was like all these kind of unknown California bands, which I heard really early on, and it like piqued my interest. But yeah, it was like Formulas and Covenant, and I think even Gateways was out by Morbid. I heard those records like all kind of around the same time, and then Death. Death was. Right away.
I know Death is kind of like Cynic. Your number one.
That's what it was, because Kevin, when Kevin started playing me music, he was like, dude, you got to hear Cynic, you got to hear Voivod, you got to hear.
He was the guy. He was the gateway.
Yeah, Confessor was not a death metal band, but like that was another sort of and Watchtower. So Confessor and Watchtower being not death metal, but being super, super important to like technical metal.
Dude, Confessor is so underrated. I mean, I know within metal they're rated, but it's like that they should be like known as, like
it's absurd music. And that's a band where I think a lot of people are like, oh, but the singer. I'm like, no,
that's literally
the
dude,
vocals are like the best part.
Dude, you're talking to me. I know about But the Singer in a big way, dude. You've recorded But the Singer,
The Singer, yeah.
Yeah. But that's sick that Kevin was like the gateway to Annihilation.
It was like Kevin and Alex Nagel were like getting me into the really avant-garde, singular death metal and extreme metal kind of bands. And Alex was also he also played me the Dark Throne.
Okay. Well, that's a very different thing.
I really lucked out that same year. I was a big fucking Champs fan, and I went to see them play. And at the merch table, they had the Weakling CD. And the merch guy was just like, dude, 20 minutes of double bass on this. And I was like, okay, I'll get that. And so that, the Dark Throne, the Ulver, Nadin's Madrigal, and that Weakling record, like that was sort of my entry into the second. I know Weakling's not this, but the second wave Norwegian black metal.
Well, just black metal in general. I mean, this is a very different thing, man. I mean, this is a very, the difference between death metal and black metal is this goes beyond aesthetics, man. I mean, there's like vibes that, I don't know, like I didn't get into black metal until way after death metal, but yeah, so I mean, so like Obscura, right? Like you hear that, right? You heard From Wisdom to Hate first, right? So anyone doesn't know, that's the record.
At least the first two songs, but I think then I probably heard the whole album and then heard Obscura or something like that. But it was like Wisdom was first and Obscura shortly after.
Yeah. Because like
and then shortly after that, the first two records, like.
Because like I heard, I was already pretty into death metal just on the level of like Morbid Angel. That's the first death metal I ever heard. Like, I think I heard it right. I think I heard Obscura right when you did. I think From Wisdom to Hate, I heard Obscura first, but From Wisdom to Hate had like just come out.
I think a lot of people heard it that way. So because the thing is, I think of it as this huge gulf of time, but I heard the record 2 years after it came out. Like that's not a long time.
No, it's like, but then again, when you're that age, that's like a seventh of your life, instead of
right.
now
and
3 years
about
is
myself
nothing,
in 1998, that was when I was like basically only listening to King Crimson. I was like maybe about to hear Universe Zero. It was like that was where I was at.
Yeah. No, totally, man. Totally. Because I mean, Morbid Angel, like that kind of stuff is like, I mean, it's not super, super complicated music, but it's there's enough in that, just that like phase of death metal that like
it's rich.
It's rich with and just weird enough, like instrumentally, that like you're ready to then check out like the most, even if you don't have a background in prog, you're ready for like the most progged out stuff. I think you're primed for that,
I can see that because it's always been interesting to me that Morbid Angel is as big a band as they are, because they're fucking weird. Every record's weird, and every record's pretty different from the last.
Yeah.
Unlike Cannibal Corpse, which it makes sense to me that they're as big as they are, because it's a very even progression from album to album. They're all different, but like it's a much, much slower progression. And live, they're fucking AC/DC.
Yeah, I
don't
just
like it's just like rock and roll live. It
right.
Live. Whereas Morbid live is tough. Like Morbid live, it's you get the thing which I'm always fucking complaining about with live metal, where it's almost every time I see Nile or any of these bands where you just get triggers and vocals and there's like a wisp of guitar in the background, and dude, I'm just like, where's the music? I
know. It's weird. Even huge bands like deal with that, It's man. I mean, I heard Obscura from Chuck Stern playing it for me over the phone. It was like him and Kim Abrams were like, just super blazed at Chuck's parents' house, and he was just like, no, literally, no. And it's like, and then I'm just like listening. I'm like listening through the phone to these like crazy riffs, like way in the background. And I'm just like,
probably translate over the phone. Okay. Cause they're sort of like higher register. And
right. Yeah. So then, so I just ran over that. I don't know if I ran over, but like many Gorguts hangs ensued, obviously. And I mean that's the thing. It's like, I was already into death metal, but for me, what I was really getting into right at that time was Captain Beefheart, and we all three of us were, and especially Trout Mask.
There's a very big parallel there.
People always call Obscura the Trout Mask replica of death metal, and it kind of like that's kind of how I heard it. But it's different because it's not just complicated; it's also brutal. I want to talk about Brutality also soon as a an idea or whatever.
Just like
Uh,
list of topics, brutality.
it's on a Word doc behind. I in my head though, I have Brutality with a bullet point, but because that's an adjective that we both have thrown around in the studio. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, Colin and I have spent quite a bit of time together in the studio because I've made several of my favorite and most important records with Colin. I mean, Colin's
and going way back, because it was probably the first one was Z's Arms in my old studio.
That's right. Oh yeah, at the Pain Cave,
dude. So I remember Helmer contacting me, being like, "We want you to record the new Z's album." And I was like, "You can't. This studio's too small."
Well, that's
how are you going to do this?
Well, because we reamped guitars. That's what we did.
Right,
we tracked them.
And Alex was already gone, so it was just Sam. So it was only one saxophone to record live. The two drum kits we were able to like cram in there, and then I DI'd you and Matt, and then we reamped the guitar, so we were able to get separation between the.
That was where I learned about reamping. You learn these things.
But yeah, and then the first Extra Life, and then the second Extra Life, and the
Yep. You've got Ripped Heart up on your wall. I don't know. I'm saying that.
Yeah. No, all the shit there.
But yeah, like So I mean, for me, it was almost like Obscura came into my life like through metal friends, through metal people, but as a sort of slab of like experimental music, quote unquote, or sort of appreciating it in that context. But then, of course, it is death metal also.
Yep.
I mean, all right, I have a million thoughts, but you start this off. I mean, how would you say that Obscura is different or similar or like influential to like tech death music of that time period, right? Like technical death metal in the 90s and then Obscura at the end of the 90s. Like, do you have because I have in my head like ways that it's like super different or whatever, but like how did that, you heard Gorguts, you heard Obscura before you were into like atheist, cynic, or no, before?
It was all at the same time. Yeah,
exactly.
So I heard
the same time.
cynic, atheist, Death, Morbid Angel, Gorguts, kind of all at once.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Morbid a little bit before, like I was saying. Maybe Incantation. I kind of can't remember those. It's all like hazy, those late 90s years. But certainly by 2000, I had by the time I was like hanging with Kevin and Nagel, I had heard all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Cryptopsy and,
it's so funny. We didn't know each other. We didn't know each other probably till 2003 or something like that.
A couple years later. Yeah. Because also, do you know how I met Chuck Stern?
No, I don't remember how we first met. We just sort of like morphed into like what? Yeah. How did you meet Chuck?
So I was at NYU going to one of these like required liberal arts like classes. I don't remember what it was. It was one of these big auditorium classes. And I like spotted this dude who just looked so fucking evil, wearing an Enemy of the Sun shirt. And he just like, he had this, he had the thick eyebrows, and he just kind of like, just looked pissed.
Yeah.
You didn't want to fucking talk to anybody. And I saw him a couple times, and I was just like, dude, this guy's into Neurosis. Like, I have to talk to him. Like,
hell yeah.
Because that was also, I didn't talk about Neurosis, but that was actually, I got into them in high school. So it kind of depends on whether or not they're not death metal, obviously, but
right.
Are they even metal, or are they hardcore, or what are they?
Yeah.
But in terms of like heavy experimental music, that actually preceded all the other stuff, because I heard them from a friend in high school when I was like when I was like 16 or something, and that band actually completely changed my life. So that's actually that's sort of a big omission there. They were super important.
Yeah, and it is important because it's like, I'm going to keep bringing it back to Obscura, but it's really about this is also a lot about.
It's really about me.
No, but it kind of is though. I mean, at least in where I want to take it, because we keep talking about like you getting into technical stuff, technical. How did you get prog this and that? But it's like, you're also deep on Neurosis.
And Neurosis is,
and that's
like
not technical.
Tech in a weird way, in terms of like, see, I relate to their way of being progressive more than I relate to the actual like tech bands, because they're progressive in the way of like, we're actually trying to like explore new musical territory, not tech and prog in the sense of trying to make just the most dense, complicated music, which like, I like density, sure. Yeah. But I'm actually never trying to make stuff complicated. let's just say that. That's not a goal of mine ever.
I figured that because like this is the thing, it's like, yeah, like Krallice, super complicated riffs, Behold the Arctopus, even more complicated, of course, but it's like it's not the most complicated music out there.
You go to 20th century classical for that, and it wins, like game over.
That's the thing. Or even within metal, I mean, if really all you cared about was stuff being hard to play, then you would be into like Michelangelo Battio or something, or I don't know, if it really was just like he shreds, you would just look at like anonymous, shred YouTuber kids or something, so it's like, obviously, no matter how complicated your stuff is, it's not about that, but it is.
Yeah. So
it's not about that, but it's
the tech label is tough because it's sort of like, what do you mean specifically by it? And then how do you feel about that specific meaning of it and so on. So anyway, like just as a way of saying, like, I was always down with just bands that were clearly trying to fucking be creative.
Yeah.
That's what I related to. So anyway, so getting back to Chuck, I was like, I have to talk to this guy. He's into Neurosis, right? So I started talking to him, and it turned out he was Time of Orchids, and I had heard Time of Orchids through somebody else. I had heard Melon Whisperer,
word. Okay.
Which was also you.
Yes. This is, for anyone that doesn't know, this is my first band first band that actually, I don't know, like played out, did an actual record. Yeah, Time of Orchids. This stuff is available. I play on half of the first record. But that's who we're talking about is Chuck Stern. This is like, he keeps coming up on the stream over and over again. It would be cool to have him on. I don't think you want to talk about not having the technology. I don't feel like I could count on him to have a mic that would work. I don't think he has the computer. Like,
way less reliable than even me in this department.
Yeah. We're doing it though. We did the Zoom. You did the Zoom hookup here.
If this might cut off after 40 minutes, we just started again. Maybe it's already been 40 minutes.
Wait. Oh, your mic. Oh, it might cut off after 40 minutes.
I'm saying, when I've been doing this shit with Mike for the Arctopus, we have to re-log in every 40 minutes.
Okay, it doesn't kill the stream though, right? It doesn't kill.
We're not streaming anything, so I have no idea.
We are streaming.
No, I'm saying with Mike.
So when you do that. Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But so I starting with, I had already heard Melon Whisper through, I can't even remember, just, I don't know, Aquarius Records or something, maybe?
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Probably Aquarius Records. Or anyway. So I don't remember why I was talking about Chuck. Oh, just him being into Obscura and stuff, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he got me into Obscura. And Kim also got both of us into Beefheart, right? So like, right,
the Beefheart connection too. So I was talking, I feel like, back then meeting those guys and then kind of meeting this other crew of musicians. So I'd sort of like discovered the music first, but then met the dudes shortly after. Oh, it's Tim Burns, I think I met. And then maybe ended up going to some party and meeting Keith, then Kim now. And being like, oh shit, you're the drummer and so on. So that was like, it was so interesting to find this other crew of dudes who were like, no, Obscura is like this really, holds this special place. So and that kind of happened again and again over those years, right? You'd sort of meet a new interesting musician, like Weasel. Then I would meet Weasel, right? Only a couple of years later, and he's like, "Oh, Obscura is legendary,"
Yeah. So. But so you were into you got into Obscura like basically at the same time as like Atheist, etc.
Yeah, because that's all the shit that Nagel and Kevin.
Yeah. Because for me, that stuff, it feels very different for me.
I'm
far less about that stuff. I have a hard time. Cynic is unique, so that overt fusion stuff is kind of cool. But I just Obscura has there's a Brutality. It's not.
Those other bands aren't brutal.
They're not brutal. evil. Okay, it doesn't feel evil is not exactly it.
I wouldn't call any of the bands evil sounding, but there's a darkness in the Gorguts sound that the other bands don't.
It's definitely dark. I mean, there's this emotional like quality to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll also say this, like what I kind of love about all those bands from that era, and we should also very importantly say that even though Obscura came out in 95 and 98, 90% of it was written in 93.
In 93, I know, I heard that, that is insane.
Insane.
That's insane, because you're talking about 93, you're talking about like,
but that's my point, is that's when Focus came out, and that's when like Atheist was recording, you know, a little bit before that and stuff. But that all that music is from the same period. It's this that we think of the Gorguts stuff as being later because that album took sort of like 5 years to get recorded and get released.
Right. You know what to me is very unique,
and it's also idiosyncratic. Like that's what's cool about that period of technical death metal, is that every band is doing it in a completely different way. And then since then, you get bands following the Cynic trend, one's following the Gorguts trend, one's following the Atheist. But
absolutely,
anyway, Sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah. I mean, one of the things that has always struck me, but I hadn't really thought about it consciously until I just like was marinating in this for the past month, is the way that there's no thrash element in the music.
Yes.
It's been completely denuded of thrash. Yeah. Which is not a bad or a good thing. It's just what that music really is. But I hadn't really thought of that, because I really have basically no background. Well, no, that's not true. What the fuck am I talking about? Like Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer.
We all have a background in that shit.
Well, I mean, I have a background in the big four, but I mean,
exactly.
I never really had a background in like the punk side of thrash. Like
me neither. Yeah, for me it was the Bay Area stuff was what I heard.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I think the fact it doesn't have that, because it's like here's what it is. That Obscura, and this is actually makes it different from the other Gorguts records too, as far as I am hearing it, is like there isn't this sense of like forward motion. Like it's not driving. Like none of it is fast, actually. Even
it doesn't have that. It doesn't have the circle pit like driving.
There's no stuff that feels like it's pushing forward. When the drums are fast, it's dense. It's not fast. It's a lot of material, but but the riff is still just like down, you know, and there'll be like these really simple rhythms in the guitar, but then like the drums are like hyper complicated. It's very the way it moves is very different. Okay, here we go.
So there's a lot of reasons why Obscura sounds the way it sounds, and we'll probably spend a while talking about this. So you already pointed out two of the things, which is fast drums, slow guitar. That's the biggest difference. In Erosion and Considered Dead, you usually have the subdivisions linked. You know, the kick drum is linked with the tremolo picking, or if it's a thrash beat, it could be like a kind of like a thrashy rhythm where you have 16th notes and 8th notes, that kind of shit. You've got lots of thrash beats. You've got groovy double bass with like syncopated snare, ka that kind of shit. And that old school set. And so a big thing is that music is very influenced by other metal bands. So when Luke was writing Considered Dead, he's listening to Entombed, Left Hand Path, and Paradise Lost and stuff. And so that's making its way into the music a little bit. Erosion of Sanity, he came down to New York when he was on Roadrunner to do some like promo stuff, called up the Suffocation guys, went to their house to watch them practice when they're practicing for Breeding the Spawn, gets his mind completely fucking blown by Suffocation's practice, goes home and writes Erosion of Sanity. So that's like a direct homage to
that's amazing.
First two Suffocation.
That's
albums.
What you mean the first two Gorguts records?
No. I'm saying the second Gorguts album is an homage to the first two Suffocation albums.
To
one that already existed and the one that they were like about to record.
Yes, yeah. yeah, that makes a ton of sense, which is why, Erosion of Sanity, I suddenly, I love that way more than
it's total suffocation. Yeah, it's
way
like
more than
Luke's
Consider Dead.
version of doing
Yeah.
Suffo. So then,
And
like, just a quick little history. You get everybody quits the band after Erosion.
yeah,
Right?
oh yeah, no, okay, but just people. All right, we don't have to fill everything in, but like the guy Luke LeMay, guitar player, vocalist, that's like the Gorguts guy. Although, but then the other members of the band have always played like a really significant role in the writing and the music, etc.
Right. Although
including
the first two albums are all written by Luke. It was the same lineup on both. It's the same second guitar player, drummer, and bass player, but it's the music's written by Luke. I don't know if maybe there was a little bit of collaboration, but it's like he wrote the songs.
Right. Because I mean, you're talking about nowadays though, like with your phase with Gorguts. I mean, you write entire songs or entire riffs or
on Colored Sands. I wrote an entire song, track 3, which is Forgotten Arrows, and Kevin wrote Absconders, which is the second to last song. Every other song is written by Luke, but we all write our own parts, and it's more polyphonic, so it's more collaborative in that sense.
Okay.
But then Obscura, okay, so this is another huge difference with Obscura. That's the only record where it's by far the most collaborative. There's only one song by a single author, and that's a Hurdle song. That's the song Clouded.
Steve Hurdle wrote that?
In its entirety. Every other song on the record is a collaboration between Luke, Steve, and Steve, or just Luke and one of the Steves.
Okay, so filling people in, Steve Hurdle was the other guitar player who died. Well, he's only on Obscura.
He's only on Obscura.
And apparently now I'm learning he wrote Clouded, which is my favorite song on the record. All due respect to Luke LeMay, because every other song is almost as amazing as Clouded. But
and that's the song Luke doesn't like.
Interesting. You sure he's not just mad that someone else? No, I mean,
no. I think we'll talk about that song more later because that's got a whole history.
What is the thing? That it's Clouded is like a doom. Like, I mean, there's so much legit like doom in that track.
Okay, let's just talk about it now. So
okay.
Clouded did. So if anybody's, this is the whole album of Obscura, the demo version. You have every song from the album in its demo version with Steve McDonald on drums instead of Patrick Roberts.
Oh, is this called And Then Comes Lividity? That's what this is?
There's 3 volumes of And Then Comes Lividity and 2 separate releases, but War on Music did this final issue where I did all the remastering that came out a bunch of years ago. Okay. And this one, you have all the songs from Obscura together.
Word.
It's the whole album as a demo, whereas for the other ones, you only have some of the tracks. For Erosion and for Considered Dead, and then there's no demos for Wisdom. But anyway, so Clouded was written literally twice as fast. It's half the length. It's twice as fast on the demo version.
Oh! I thought you meant fast, as in how long it took to write the song. You're saying
no.
The music was the tempo was
double tempo.
And then they just decided it would be cool to do it half the speed?
To do it literally half the speed. And that's why it's so insanely doomy. It's not doomy in the way it was conceived. It sounds like the other songs on the record. It's groovy.
Wow.
Dude,
okay.
Charlie, if you've never heard that version, like put it on. It'll really like fuck with your head.
Okay. No. I mean, I got to check that out, man. I mean, yeah, because that's like, to have the, to feel free enough to do that, you have to be feeling really creatively free to put that much work into writing some super highly wrought technical piece of music,
and then to make the decision to like dismantle it.
Yeah. It's like you just paint the Mona Lisa, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna just do like a tree over I'm just gonna
coat it in like a wash of red.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it turns out to be like, is it infinitely sicker? I don't know. Is the double speed one even sicker? No.
I think ultimately they made a cool decision to half speed it because it's so distinctive that way and just so gut wrenching. Like, but also I just have this history of it like just fucking me up as a young guy, so who knows. Sure. But it's really interesting to hear the fast version. And then what's great in the track listing, that's the 94 demo. It goes from Clouded right into Sweet Silence, the last song from the record.
That's nuts.
And that song, they do way slower. So you get Fast Clouded immediately going into super slow, sweet silence. And it's like really, it makes you feel like you're fucked up.
Strange, man. Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff like, I mean, the guy, I mean, this is another thing, just classical training. I wanted to talk about just like training and stuff, because it's pretty clear on this stuff that, well, okay. Well, one thing I was going to say is in death metal in general, so much death metal is super complex, even stuff that's not considered technical death metal, like we were talking about. I mean, even just people don't call suffocation tech death. They're highly technical. People don't call even Morbid Angel, that's not considered tech, but it's very, very technical compared to most.
Yeah, because I guess just because those bands sort of predate that as a genre, because tech death is now a genre.
Right,
just
which
like,
it wasn't.
Just like brutal death metal is a genre, right?
Yeah,
I mean, tech death, I would say, is like maybe a newer genre, slightly. But I don't know if I like any of that.
Right.
That's just become this other thing. But it's really, I mean, a couple more things about the reason Obscura sounds the way it sounds. I mean, for one thing, it is not being played by anybody that has like classical training.
That was my thing.
This is music being played by like kind of all idiot savant weirdos. Luke was like into classical music, but like I think had yet to go to conservatory. That was later. So there's no classical at all.
Okay, I didn't know that, because I was watching interviews with him and he was talking about how he was like, he studied, like Schubert and, like
that was later.
Counterpoint. That was after Obscura. How old is Luke? He's not that much older than us. Is that
Luke
right?
Luke is 11 years older than me. He's 51.
Oh, okay. So
basically what it was they wrote everything except Obscura and Nostalgia in 93. They did the 93 demo, the 94 demo. Then 95, they're like so sick of just playing these same songs over and over again. They wrote Obscura and Nostalgia. 95 demos, those two. Then a couple years later, Steve McDonald quits the band. Fuck, we got to get a new drummer. They bring in Patrick Robert. They rehearse with him for about a year. They do the record. It comes out. Steve rejoins the band. And then just a couple years later, they do Wisdom. Steve Hurdle leaves the band. They get Dan Mongrain. And so you have like Obscura, really the band was the same as Wisdom, except with Hurdle instead of Mongrain. But just at the last minute, it ended up being a different drummer. And that's a whole conversation because it's very different feeling with the two drummers. Okay. But just to quickly go through like a couple of these things, like, so you have the first two records being directly influenced by other metal bands. And that plays a role in the sound. And it's much more like referential to that.
Yeah.
Then everybody leaves the band. Luke gets this offer to do this Europe tour with Blasphemy of all bands. Hilarious.
Not technical.
Other end of the fucking spectrum. Yeah, just evil and attitude,
Yeah.
So he gets the lineup for Obscura then to do this Europe tour. So it's the three Steves. Luke's thinking of changing his name to Steve. That was the joke at the time. You got Steve McDonald on drums, Steve Hurdle on guitar, and Steve Cloutier on bass. They go to Europe, do this tour playing Erosion, come back. Steve's doing Purulence, but gets kind of fed up with that band and it's being slow. And he's like, I just had this great experience with Gorguts. I want to do Gorguts. So then they're like, okay, what do we do for the next record? I think they wrote Rapturous Grief, which is much more traditional. Maybe it doesn't sound that way in the context of the record, but it's all like octaves. Like there's not as much dissonance. There's not as much weird timing and stuff. Then they kind of get the bug. Okay, this is what we're going to do for the rest of the record. We're going to impose all these strict rules on what we're going to have and not have. We're not going to have any thrash beat. We're only going to have fast double bass and super fast blasting. We're not going to have any tremolo picking.
Yeah.
We're basically going to have no palm muting. There's a little bit of palm muting here and there, but like not in the traditional like thrash metal way that you would palm mute.
Right.
And I don't know if this was like a rule they set, but the way they composed the music for that is completely different from every other Gorguts record and completely different from the way most bands work, period, I think. They wrote it all in sections. Every song was individual riffs, not with no structure.
Okay.
And they would somebody would write, they would bring, like everybody would come to practice and bring in riffs, all three of them. And they would be like, okay, let's try that. Let's work on that riff. And they would write the drum part to it and work on it and just loop that riff, like disconnected. Then later, not even holding the instruments, they would like decide what the structure would be and put together all these riffs, then learn that. And that's the song. So that's why I think that's a big reason it doesn't have this sense of like forward motion and like storytelling kind of vibe that the older songs have. Because it's not Luke being like, okay, what would be a good opening riff? Okay, what would be a good verse riff? Okay, what would be a good chorus riff? It's not being like, thought about that way. It's all being thought about as these disembodied, disconnected pieces where the tempo of the drums is always kind of feeling like it's 4 times faster than the guitar.
Yeah.
Now we're just going to collage those together. So what's really interesting is there's way less content in the Obscura songs than on any other record. And I can show you. This is the music for Obscura. It's fucking 3 pages of music.
You got it. You got to hold it up close.
It's not even 3 pages. It's 2 full pages and then 3 more bars. That's
okay.
Obscura.
I don't understand that. Why is it so little material? It's that
because there's only like 4 riffs in the song or 5 riffs. I can't remember. That's
really.
And they all go by quick. They're all short riffs. Obscura, bam, dun, 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 dun,
like really,
that's one riff.
Like really short riffs, collaged.
Yeah.
Collaged. I see. Okay. So it's like,
so you get these short riffs. They all go, the structures are like not weird. It's like you always get a riff 4 times. There's not a lot of weird like shaving of beats and stuff like that. So Erosion of Sanity, check out how long this song is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right?
Okay.
And there's the solo. Yeah. So like that shit doesn't sound as insane because it's just more unison and like you're kind of being like led along on this musical journey through these riffs. Whereas with Obscura, it's like, okay, welcome to this scene. Okay, welcome to this scene. They're just back to back. And the flow is really cool. And like, I think they did a good job collaging the riffs.
Well, they
ultimately is a collage of riffs.
Well, they did an amazing job because it doesn't sound like that at all. And I mean, I was going to say, I can't tell, I can't make out the different riffs and stuff. Like it sounds like this, or it sounds to me like the exact opposite of what you're saying. It's not just that it doesn't sound like that. It sounds literally.
It sounds like the inverse of what I just
like organic. I know the word organic is always like overly. It becomes a little bit of a cop out word, but something not stitched together, something that is growing from itself, from the inside out. Whole, there's a wholeness, or organic.
And I think that comes from, the music was written collaged, but then they practiced the songs like every day for 5 years.
Right.
So the music was, they played the fuck out of that music before it got recorded. And it's kind of a strange thing that at the last minute, it ended up being a different drummer. And so this is a reason why, interestingly, Luke hates Obscura. He doesn't hate the music, but he hates the way the record came out because it was a totally different feel on the drums than was intended.
Huh.
And it's really interesting to hear Luke and Patrice talk about Obscura because they're just like, the drumming's terrible. It's a mess. It's so sloppy. And I don't hear it that way. You listen to the demo versions with Steve playing drums, and I get what they're saying. It sounds way more square. Patrick Robert, who played on Obscura, learned the drum parts from those demos, but wasn't really an extreme metal drummer, I think. So it was sort of new to the whole. I could be wrong on that, but he wasn't comfortable, and I think the recording process was super frustrating with him he sort of wasn't ready to record. And
well, that so may be
Luke was fucking pissed off, and he's like, okay, I'm leaving, you guys record it, I'll come back and overdub my parts.
I mean, some of that might be part of what gives it that Trout Mask replica vibe, because Trout Mask, right? You got the drummer, the Captain Beefheart drummer, John French or whatever, right? He's like, or was it John French at that point? No,
That name sounds right, but I'm no authority on beatbox.
I actually can't remember whether it's John French or like Drumbo, or is that the same guy?
I don't know.
Chime in the comments who the drummer on Trout. Actually, I should know that. I should know.
Oh yeah. P.S. I can't look at the comments because I'm on this tablet where I don't have like enough screen.
Oh, so. Word. Okay. I'll take.
If there's anything in there, just relay it.
I'll take a look at. Yeah.
Is there any good, like particularly good shit talking?
No, people keep it pretty. There was a little phase where Scumbag, like, because of some other podcasts I had been on, like there was attracting some people where I had to be like, yeah, that ain't it, man. Maybe
it's not really the vibe here.
It's not, yeah. That's off message for Last Things, but now it's sort of stabilized. But yeah, I think the discomfort, uncomfortable drummer. It's very different. It's very different. Yeah, that's a very different feel than triggered.
Okay, so that's another thing. Yeah, in the demos, there's no triggered kicks. They're kind of mixed loud, so you still hear the kicks, but it's natural bass drums. Yeah. And the tempos are overall slower, with the exception of Clouded. And I mean, some of the tempos are faster, but mostly they're slower. So Obscura just has a little bit of this off the rails sound, which to me never came off as incompetent or sloppy at all.
Not at all, no.
I can see what Luke and Patrice are saying, like I get it, but I still don't hear it, even though I should be able to hear it. Like I have good ears, I should be able to hear the sloppiness, but to me, it still sounds awesome.
Well, dude, I should be able to hear that it's just three riffs chopped together. The fact that I can't hear that, I'm just like, what is wrong?
Kind of thing, like, that's the kind of thing I think you just don't realize until you learn the music. So it's cool because at this point, I've played half the album. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool because it's like I almost don't want to learn all the songs because I like that some of it remains mysterious. But even just learning the songs that I've learned, it makes the other songs less mysterious because now I really, really understand how it's all put together.
Right, like what the process. I mean, do you ever see, like, I think that's interesting that part of what they did, just deciding rules for themselves. They're like, we're not going to have tremolo picking. We're not going to have these thrash elements, like basically
nothing linking it to the past of death metal.
Yeah.
They were like being futurist, they were being like, no, like, or modernist. I don't know if it's futurist or modernist, but they were like, we're just trying to do some new shit. And I was even asking Luke about this yesterday. I was like, it's my impression that when you did the first two records, you were like being inspired by bands and records and like doing your version of that. And when you got to Obscura, you were like not doing that. And you were just saying, let's be creative and try to do something new. And he was just like, yes.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
I watched an interview where he was like, he was on the one hand, he was like, look, genre stuff, genres are artificial, right? Like, music is music, the musical ideas are transferable, he's sort of speaking against genre. But then he also said, he was like, but I work in death metal, and he said that death metal as a realm is like, he said it's one of the most open genres as far as absorbing musical ideas from other genres.
Yes.
Like there's, right? Like, so
it's almost like you can bring whatever you want into it as long as it's like well integrated.
Yeah, as long as you death metalize it or like plug it, but it's like you can have these outside of death metal ideas.
But honestly, I mean, isn't that really true of any genre if you want it to be true? I mean, like that's
maybe so.
Basically, Luke is just telling you, like, I'm kind of a creative guy.
Right. Like, and I love death metal, Yeah.
Because you have other bands. Like I went to the Death to All Suffocation show the other night with those guys, and was having conversations with different people, and certain conversations with certain people, they're like, yeah, death metal's about getting the crowd moving, and I'm like, okay, that's what it's about to you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, that's why I thought, I think about the idea of genre a lot, actually, because it's like I hear people. There's this thing where people are like, music is music, man. I don't. There's no genres, but then they're like, we're a death metal band. Like people are always back. Same, especially with jazz. They're just like, man, I don't even play jazz. I just call it creative music. And then they're just like, I'm a jazz. Like,
No,
I don't know.
that's just you have some hangups about playing jazz. That's
But
the label of
so.
jazz.
Maybe so. I mean, I almost this is maybe getting too deep out of my depth, but I mean, like, I do sometimes think that genre, it's a lot less low stakes than this topic, obviously, but it's kind of like race or something. It's like, it's not real, but it's totally real, but it's not real, but it's totally real.
No, that's
in a certain context, you'd be like, dude, I don't see color. In other contexts, it's like, no, I'm white. You know, it's like, yeah.
I think it has to be that. Yeah, because because what is genre? It's not the thing that makes music. It's the analyzation of the music that exists and us trying to like make sense out of it. And find certain patterns and like have a shorthand to talk about things. So it's like, obviously we need some version of that for everything in fucking reality. Otherwise you can't communicate. So I get it, but it's when people get too hung up on it and they just decide that there's some rules that can't be broken. And then
Well, I mean, there's weird stuff that like, you know, people with Extra Life, people were kind of like, oh, it's like not I don't know, it's like outside of genres or mixed genres or et cetera. But relaunching Extra Life now, I'm treating old Extra Life as a genre, and then being like, I'm rebooting Extra Life because it's in that genre, and now it's going to depart from that probably.
Right.
But the new Extra Life is almost like if Extra Life is a genre, then the new Extra Life is like just a straight up. It's like it's straight ahead, like it's traditional or whatever, if that's the tradition. But I mean, I know with Krallice though, man, I know that Krallice formed. Actually, wait, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the case that you guys were just like, let's do what if we did a black metal band? Like didn't it start with just like the idea of a genre, and then it like immediately became more unique? But that like the concept was like, we're not even going to do something like crazy, right?
No, absolutely. And the concept idea, whatever we talked about, it wasn't even supposed to be a band. It was just Mick. I was, like buddies with Mick, and we were like working on, I was like engineering all his albums in those years and stuff. And I think and dude, we gotta talk about this. His short-lived label, the only two releases of which were the first Z's album and the second Octopus EP. That's kind of a hilarious little family there.
Yeah, not everybody knows that. Mick Barr. Well, this was 2002, right? Well, Mick Barr had an imprint.
On Trouble Man.
It was a sub label that was
how obscure is that?
Trouble Man Unlimited. A lot of these young kids, that doesn't mean anything to. Well, actually, anyone who's like even like 2 years younger than us, like it doesn't mean anything.
Because it was like we were right at the end, sort of.
But the thing is, man, some of these things, these career things, they actually do matter, because being on Trouble Man Unlimited in 2002 was like hot shit. I mean, it wasn't money.
It definitely seemed that way. Yeah.
That was like the cool kids. Like that was like hipster shit, like Eraserata, you know. Well, maybe that's the only big band that was on Trouble.
Right.
No, but
it's all just like our perception of it at the time.
Yeah, no, but like it was like there were a lot of that was like a whole hang. Trouble Man Unlimited. It's like almost like emo, like post emo, like no wave shit. And then Mick was given the sub label. Yeah, and all he did, he put out the first Z's record and Behold the Octopus.
And that was about as long as it lasted. So with Krallice, it was like, oh, let's do a black metal album together, because just we've been hanging out and talking about
studio project, right? Like just
studio project. Yeah, and he had already done Beast Lore in like the late 90s on the 4-track. So it's like when I knew about that and was even hearing, like at the time we were doing a lot of the Octus and it was like the Orthrum OV period and stuff. So like he was kind of getting back into the trancey, more atmospheric kind of guitar playing. So like we were both just kind of feeling this atmospheric guitar thing. And we're like, okay, it would be really cool to make do a record together. Hired Lev as a session drummer, hilariously. Me and him did the bass on it. And then McMaster was just always in the wings. Carlin had done the logo and stuff. And so then when we decided to like do a show, it was like, okay, well, obviously it's McMaster. And then it kind of accidentally became a band. And I guess like really the first four albums were sort of like more or less the same idea of the music. And then we took this we did the EPs and then took a break. And that was when we like totally recalibrated between 2013 and 2015. Mick and I started doing Hathinter, improv, guitar, and like just stopping. That was when we basically stopped attaching a genre to it. When we're like, hey, this is no longer about doing any particular kind of music. Let's just have this be the band we would have if we didn't ever talk about it.
Yeah. I feel it. Well, see, okay.
And then that was the Yig Her album, and then since then it's just been, I don't even know what's fucking happened since then. But that was sort of
this is the thing. Like I there's certain words I like latch onto. I keep latching onto. You said atmosphere, right? So like I like that. That's something I kind of want to think about. Is like that. Yeah, you said like the concept was like, what if we did a black metal record? But the next thing you said is like something with more atmosphere. Like, so that's interesting to me.
More directly, and I think traditionally atmospheric than Orthrealm and Behold the Arctopus and Dysrhythmia, which were kind of like our bands at the time, and Octus.
So what is, I think a lot of different people might use the word atmospheric differently. I bet you I think we probably think about it the same, but like what do you think what is atmospheric in the sense of metal or just music in general? Like what makes something atmospheric?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I guess like maybe ideas that develop slower, like creating more of a mood over time rather than lots of packets of information, which are sort of like exciting to like, you know, try to parse in the moment, and like letting yourself be kind of confused, and then like that, which is kind of maybe the approach of Arctopus or something.
That's what I think of.
Getting into this overly dense music that's almost like too much to take in at once, and that just being kind of fun.
Interesting. So would you say? See, I know it's annoying. Maybe I overly determine what you're saying, but would you say that Arctopus does not have atmosphere? That's a weird thing. Would you say like there's no atmosphere to it?
No, I think it does. Ultimately, so that's why atmosphere is a tough word, because I think ultimately it does. It's just a different atmosphere, and it's like the way I hark on people for misusing the word melodic all the time, because when people say melodic, what they mean is consonant. And that's not, melody doesn't have to be consonant. Melody can be very uncomfortable and awkward and dissonant. It can be all those things.
No, totally. Yeah.
So yeah, with atmosphere, no, sure. I think all that shit, and dude, fucking mixed music has tons of atmosphere. It's like this atmosphere you're not used to. So when I'm saying it applying to Krallice, I'm actually using it more the like non-technically correct.
Because that's what I think of. When I think of atmosphere, I think of what basically what you're saying, like things that develop slower.
Yeah.
Or I think like something that feels like, whether there's a lot of parts in it or whether there's not a lot of parts, it feels there's something that's the same. There's like a wholeness to it, maybe. Like you can go into it.
More of a monochromatic thing, which actually Mick has in his more like technical music. His shit is always like more monochromatic like that. Maybe not now, but back then for sure.
Yeah.
And whereas with Arctopus, I tried more. It was more about like keeping your interest and contrast. With Krallice, it was more like, you know, I was so into the Ulver record and the Dark Throne and stuff, where you had this sort of like just this bath, and there's movement in there, but it's just the effect is just
yeah. I mean this is what, just with mixed stuff, like from his him going from Orthrealm, well, like we've said this before, but like that, just Orthrealm being the most like tons of information, change, going to OV, where it's literally just one riff for like 5 minutes and then another riff for 5 minutes, right? The trance thing, that for me was huge, because it was like realizing like, oh wait, it was trance before.
Yeah.
It was already like that. Like even when it had all the different parts, like it already had. He's just like showing you this different angle of that it always was atmospheric, you know. Because I mean, I don't know, early Z's, I would say that's not atmospheric, and that's not a slight to the music, but that it's like it does feel like it's about a thing and then another thing and then this and then that, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you and I disagree, because at the same time, it just depends on what you mean by atmosphere. And I guess if I'm using it in the looser sense where it's like really like captivating and setting a vibe, then it absolutely is. It's almost more atmospheric than shit that's traditionally atmospheric, because you're just like, you're fucking sucked in. Like, and here you are. Like, there's nowhere to go. You can't like stop paying attention. Almost.
Right.
At least it's like that for me. But I like weird music like that. So
we'll see. Okay. I mean, this is okay. An issue I think about a lot with my own stuff, with my friends and peers stuff, and with Obscura and just technical death metal in general. It's like, how much is how much of these things musicians' music, quote unquote, because like death metal to me is an interesting realm where it's like, obviously a lot of musicians love it, but there are a lot of death metal fans who are not musicians. I mean,
sure.
Compared to like jazz, I think there's way more people who don't know how to play an instrument who are into death metal, particularly death metal that's pretty technical. Sure. Whereas like, I mean, something like jazz or even classical, well, it's different, classical, but yeah, I mean,
because you have the academia attached to it, so that sort of changes that whole world.
But I mean, do you like, see, because I get bummed at the idea, I get less bummed nowadays. I used to get really bummed about the idea that I make stuff that's like musicians' music. The idea
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That there's like a barrier to entry. The idea that there's a barrier to entry, it's weird. I hate the idea of there being an elitist barrier to entry based on playing an instrument, but the idea of there being an elitist barrier to entry based on some other kind of like metal elitism of taste, that I like. I don't know. It's just what kind of elitism we're talking about. I don't know,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you get hung up the way I do on the idea of making musicians' music? Like, does that bum you out, the term? Or like,
I think it's probably similar to you, where back in the day, I would be more excited if somebody would get into Behold who was not a musician, because it had this very musician's music thing attached to it.
Yeah.
And so I guess to me that just proved that the music could connect with someone outside of the craft aspect of it.
Yeah.
Which I guess to me, that's where the disappointment lies. I actually don't care if you're a musician or not a musician or anything. It's just, I don't really care if you appreciate my craft. I do kind of care a little bit. I mean, maybe I say I don't care, but I think everybody cares a little bit, that you care, like appreciate my ideas, or even if you don't like my ideas, you sort of like can appreciate them.
Yeah.
I really don't care if you think I played well.
Right.
That's totally besides the point. I get way more excited about sloppy musicians doing something cool, and I get pissed off by really, really sick musicians doing music that I think sucks.
Yep. No, for sure.
That's the only thing that's kind of offensive to me in music. Like, you can be like horrible at your instrument, and if you're like passionately playing something that I happen to connect with, like, I'm going to be into it.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. I mean, it's like, and I mean, like I said before, it's like, I no matter how technical your stuff or my stuff is, there's way more technical stuff we could be doing. There's obviously some reason, but then I ask myself sometimes, I'm like, if I love music that has a billion notes, and then I also love music that has 4 notes, why am I not doing the stuff with 4 notes? Like, what is it about?
Well,
it's like there's something.
There's not like a hierarchy of that shit. It's just, these are like spaced out just on a continuum of like things you can do creatively, and it's like you can do shit minimally, you can do shit maximally. It's just, these are just options. So I don't think there's any like there's no it's not necessarily better to do what Obscura does and make this impression of complexity through non-complexity. That's really cool, but I'm just as down with music that's set out to have all this density and has all that density. Like, it's a cool like magic trick that Obscura does.
Okay.
And I can respect that on its own level, but ultimately it's just like, does the music hit you on some immediate level?
Word. I mean, but actually, I'm talking outside this. I'm talking about like making music that sounds complex versus music that is the Ramones or Dark Throne.
Right, and I'm just saying they're both equally awesome music to be making. So it's like, just because one might take more effort or more time and gets less appreciated, that's not a reason to not do that as much. I mean, it's like, why not? Just do whatever inspires you. And if it's this shit where you're banging your head against the wall and nobody gives a fuck, that's not a reason to stop. Like,
look, obviously, obviously, when it comes to being inspired about what you're doing, you can't totally control what you're inspired by, because you're getting. I mean,
so you just got to go where that.
Yeah. But you can control. You can make decisions, though. I mean, like, for example, I mean,
like Obscura, you can set some ground rules. Yeah.
Because it's like, that's not a decision. That's certainly not a decision that's along the lines of, we're going to make this more accessible. If anything, it makes it even less accessible. But
accessibility wasn't a concern. They were like, the only concern was like, oh, what can we do to make sure that this comes out like more different than if we just did it organically?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, something with Krallice, which is similar, but like with completely different results, is us like changing the lineup for the last 3 or 4 records, where now I'm on keyboards and drums, Mick is on bass, and McMaster's on guitar. So it's like, well, we always had keyboards, bass, and drums, but now we have 1 guitar instead of 2. We kicked both of me and Mick out as the guitarist and got a new guitar player. We have full-time keyboards. We have double drumming. So it's like, we do have all these different things, but it's instrumentation change, not really like we set ground rules for the composition. With Gorguts, it's all the same instruments, but they set some ground rules for the composition. So those are all cool ways to just impose a change. For the new Dysrhythmia, Kevin is programming all the drums.
Okay.
And it's pretty interesting because he's not a drummer. He has no idea how the drums work. And I mean that in the most loving way possible.
Yeah.
So his ideas are completely fucking off the rails for anything any drummer would ever think to do.
Very hard to play. Yeah.
And I write a lot of drum parts, but I have this background as a drummer.
Yeah.
So I have a sense of what's doable and what's not. And all those years writing drums for Arctopus, I have a sense of what's asking too much and so on.
Yeah.
So, but Kevin doesn't, and it's cool because Jeff is forced to interpret this completely unplayable drum material.
Yeah.
And it ends up with this thing that like nobody would have come up with if we just done it naturally. So, so yeah, I'm into this vibe of like imposing a little bit rule, but but then just don't get too attached to the rule enough. Like you need to break it here and there, go for it. Or if, I mean, it's just like in Krallice, we call it not being too Christian.
Not being too, you mean just like not being overly,
too letter of the law.
Yeah, right. Little, rules are meant to be broken. Plans, planning is essential.
Plans are for the week, things like that.
Plans are for the week. I mean, yeah, if you're in a metal band and you want to get your idea across, just say that disagreeing is for the week, and that your riff is going in there. Just appeal to the idea of power to get power. Okay. I've thought about how, like, in metal, with the technical, just like there's like more science people in metal, I think.
You think so? Yeah, I would be stoked about that. I mean,
anecdotally, I don't have stats.
I'm like total science. Like, I basically have no interests beyond making records, except for science.
This is what I'm saying. This is anecdotal based on who I know. I have no stats on it. But McMaster, right? He has a background in science.
Yeah, that's right. He actually did some fucking real science in college. I'm just kind of like into fucking Neil Tyson and Brian Greene and like
but still, I mean,
and science fiction and shit too, science fact and fiction. But but actually, just like in terms of now, I've been sort of more up on current events in the last since the pandemic and stuff than I have in fucking years, and so I'm now like, I basically managed to like shut out the entire world for most of the 2000s. And now I'm kind of like in the world a little bit more. and
man.
it's terrifying. And so I have to just like run away to like, if it's going to be like news, I'll go to the science news and I'll just fucking hang out with the James Webb telescope and shit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sick shit is happening right now.
Yo, okay. Well, see, yeah, that's interesting. Being, you were like, yeah, how did you just put it? Like being out of the world or being out of just current events? You're talking about current events.
Yeah, because I've never had social media. Like now I'll post news on like the Behold Instagram, you know, but I still don't even really understand how to use Instagram like the way people use it.
Yeah.
So it's a bulletin board for me, but like just now, like I just basically started watching like the late night guys again. And so I know about that, you know, and then occasionally PBS
late night.
Like, oh fuck, right. Like the world is like,
wait, what's late night? Wait, you mean like,
yeah, you know, like Kimmel and Colbert. And
yeah, dude.
Yeah, the Daily Show. Yeah, shit like that.
Yeah.
I have to do it through comedy or fucking PBS because I can't deal with like.
Dude, we're on different. I mean, because I get my news and current events from like anonymous 19-year-old fucking
from social media.
Just anime kids from like I don't know who they are. Like that's
right because you're right. you're like on Twitter, right?
I'm on everything. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes, but I just have no sense of what Twitter is. Like I don't know like what
the punchline.
And I know what it is, but
the punchline is neither of us are getting reality at all. We're both getting different flavors of lies from different places. But just on the topic of being disconnected from the world, though, I think about this with metal a lot versus other genres, or other genre, but like even just as the loosest aesthetic field of metal, that like I always think of metal as being more like macroscopic, like you're like zoomed out, you know, like. Whereas
in what sense though?
Like not having stuff be about like narrative stuff about the guy, you know, like autobiography of the singer
of the composer,
like the lyrical content and just the like concept of what it is, you know. It doesn't have the same intro, like personal, well, there's could be introspection, but you know, not like narrative stuff, personal, you know, autobiography, like tales, you know, this kind of thing. Politics, I mean, there's politics in metal, but like nowhere near the way it is in like, you know, punk or even
I mean, I would say in thrash you obviously had a lot of politics.
Yes.
But yeah,
nuclear goo, man.
Yeah, dude, but when you get to death metal, it's more fantasy or just being abstract.
Yeah. Which is what I mean. Which is one of the things that I love about just metal as a general thing. Less the fantasy and more just the abstractness.
Exactly, and that's really what pulled me in, because I, you know, going back to like way earlier in the conversation when I was saying it was like these little bits of the King Crimson stuff where I was like, where is that music? And I was like, oh, it's in Gorguts, it's in Martyr, it's in Voivod, it's in you know, which were all bands that were kind of like maybe trickle down influenced by that stuff too, possibly. Or stuff in the Satellite, you know, just the darkest, most extreme rock music that there was. The shit where it starts to cross over into the 20th century classical in terms of just it being this gut-wrenching shit that's also really creative and just like ecstatic with like new ideas.
Yeah.
So you get that in that early death metal stuff, and so like that's always been a part of Gorguts, which is why Luke sort of takes a break and recharges, because he always wants to have that like, well, now we're back with this new fucking idea.
Yeah. But I often think, you know, the reason I was like thinking about the word brutal and the reason I wanted to come back to it is because I was thinking about like, I was like, okay, like Colin and I, you know, I feel like when in the studio and other times, but I think especially in the studio, you know, we've done a fair amount of like, oh, that record rules, that record rips, talking about what rips, what's amazing, right? And like I said before, like we're never like oh, that's so technical, that's why we like it, check out how technical it is. Never heard you say that or me say that, right?
No.
But we also usually aren't like, oh, that's so evil, or like that's so depressed or hateful. We like music that's evil and depressed, hateful, whatever. But like brutal is a word that I feel like comes back a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right.
And it's there's something about that in my mind where I'm like something like Obscura, right? Like I've been thinking as the years go on and I become less fucked up, for lack of a better word, I start to see what music falls by the wayside, and I realize, oh, that was about actual misery and like real darkness. And then other stuff that doesn't fall away, and I'm like, oh, that's perennial. Like, and something like Obscura, it's like there's nothing about that where I have to be in a depressed, fucked up state to appreciate it. Whereas like Black Witchery or Revenge, it's like I'm doing well, and therefore I do not listen to that music. And all due respect to that stuff, but it's like there's, you know what I mean? Like that's actually dysfunctional.
I can totally see that. I can totally see that with Black Witchery. I actually feel like Revenge is a little more on the Gorguts tip of being just
Conqueror. I can still check out for some reason. Revenge is I don't know. Anyway, but
I think it's just because I know the Revenge guys a little bit, so it's like I Jay Reed is just kind of just like a friendly Canadian dude.
Really, he's just a chiller, huh?
He was super fucking cool when I hung with him, and Tim, who's their live bass player, who's the Antediluvian dude. Okay. Dude, I fucking love Tim. Tim and I are like, I've mastered a lot of the Antediluvian stuff and some of the Revenge stuff, and a bunch of Tim's other bands. He's got Black Death Cult, which I worked on a couple records for.
Word.
And he's just a fucking sick, cool, interesting music bro who's, a little bit similar to Luke, like kind of just trying to do his own thing. I mean, like he's more in that bestial metal world than in the kind of like more polished metal world that like Luke is kind of in the world of. But like I still feel like they're both like
well they
more focused on just being unique.
Well, they've made music that is so that seems legitimately like psycho, or like it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear they're doing well. I don't know, I guess just the role that music played.
Yeah, I mean, I think Black Witchery for sure. Black Witchery for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, yo, those guys are fucked up guys. I'm like, well, yeah, sure.
The drummer from Black Witchery was playing drums in Blasphemy when we played with them and Revenge. And Kevin and I had a funny ride to the airport with him.
Brutality, man. But
all those guys were cool too, like the Blasphemy guys. And actually, like I was saying, Luke toured with Blasphemy, the Europe Erosion of Sanity tour with the Obscura lineup was with Blasphemy.
Oh yeah. I remember you said that. Yeah, no. Look, this is not. I'm not calling people. I'm just saying, like,
no. You're talking about the vibe of the music. No, I'm totally
well, and I'm talking about what it really seems like it's coming from. That's been interesting that it's not, But I just just in my life, what roles these things have played. Whereas like Obscura, Gorguts,
it's like
it means that it has the same effect on me that it did when I heard it, and at any point, and Brutal. I don't know.
Yeah, no, me too. And even like I'm saying now having this very like deep understanding of at least half the songs, it's I listen to like, so now we're playing for this upcoming Gorguts show, we're playing like 5 songs from Considered Dead and then 5 songs from Obscura. 2 of the Obscura songs we never played before, 3 of them we did. So I then like listened to the whole album again for the first time and then was like revisiting these demo versions and kind of like I was like, yeah, this music's like just as vital and interesting as it was. And that was like built into the way it was made, because it was made in this way that nobody else fucking writes death metal records. Like 5 distinct ways that nobody else makes death metal records. The weird like dual tempo that you're always hearing, like fast drum, slow guitar, this like collaging of these fully formed pieces, this total collaboration on every song. That like Luke contributed the least material to that record. It's the most from Steve Cloutier and Steve Hurdle. And Luke is probably, if you would think it would be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I think maybe Luke is like more like 20% or something. Obviously, it's still his band and he's the leader and he's having a big influence on it. But it's way more collaborative than probably like any other death metal record we could think of, where like there's typically one guy kind of writing a song and then other people arranging it together.
Yeah, I mean that's I had no idea how collaborative it was, and it's super collaborative now. Yeah, like Colored Sands and the records that you and Kevin have been on, right?
Oh, and so that's actually something cool to talk about. So yeah, with Colored Sands, it was like Luke wrote all the pieces, or he wrote a few, sent it to us. We worked on those. We worked on a couple more. Then he was like, Colin, I want you to write a song. So that was Forgotten Arrows. And then I think Kevin had a riff and he was like, this could be for Gorguts. And he showed it to Luke and Luke was like, yeah, that rules. Write a song with that.
Yeah.
But we're all writing our own parts for the Luke song. So it's getting a little more collaborative. But then come Pleiades Dust, that in a way is just as collaborative as Obscura, but vertically instead of horizontally. So
collaborative vertically.
Yeah, so Luke wrote the whole structure of the song beginning to end, and even some initial drum ideas. But then we never play the same riff together. Like the bass never ever plays what the guitar plays. Like it's always polyphonic. So in that sense, like I wrote a bass piece that goes on top of Luke's guitar piece.
Yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this vibe. Why? Here's an interesting. But if you're doing that though, do you have an aversion to ever do the same thing that is in the other riff? Like, is the whole point like to really have them be totally separate the whole time? Like, is that?
I didn't obscura it. Like I didn't make a rule for myself, but what I did, I remember when I was writing all the bass and even the song that I wrote for Colored Sands, I was huge. Gorguts was my favorite band. Let's just say that. Like it was my fucking favorite band. I got
so sick, man.
And fucking write music for them. So I had like super strong opinions about what was the Gorguts sound and what wasn't. Yeah. And I abided by all those. So like I remember early on Luke being like, do you want to play the war guitar? And I was like, no, it has to be bass. No, hell no. That's not coming into this. And I that could be a false memory, but it was talked about. I don't remember if he suggested it, but I shut it down. I was like, no.
No, I can understand that. Yeah.
It's got to have the open strings. It's got to have that shit with the fast drums and the slow guitar, which Wisdom continued from Obscura. Like that was part of the sound still. But I let the bass be a little more independent, but it still had to be very like linked with the guitar. Yeah. Then when Pleiades came around, I was like, I am not going to think about that at all. I'm just going to write the bass that me as Colin would write if nobody told me to do anything.
Right. I mean, because
So in a way, that was the one that was totally organic. I was like thinking down particular lines when I did all the bass for Colored Sands, but Pleiades, there was no thought put into it. I was just like, oh, this is what Luke's doing. Here's what I hear. And I ended up rewriting a lot of the drums too, because it was like initially very groovy at halftime. And I was like, actually, that's one way in which I think I kind of Gorgutsed it, where I was like, this doesn't sound like Gorguts enough to me. Like it needs more of the fast blasting and more of the brutalness, because otherwise it was starting to sound a little more like Meshuggah or something, which I just like. That sound to me over the years is poison.
Dude, I do not like Meshuggah, man. I just do not. I mean, I've
had my time with them. Like I hated it at first, then I loved it, then I kind of got really sick of it. Yeah. And at this point, I appreciate Meshuggah, but I can't listen to anything that fucking sounds like it. The whole world of Gent is like, nope. I think that's even remotely close to that. Can I give any patience to?
Yeah, I think I'm professionally removed enough from Meshuggah that I'm not shooting myself in the foot to say that I don't like that. Like I don't think I just tanked my career,
No, but I can honestly say I do like them, but it's just it had too much of an impact on the world of metal, and I don't like the way that people were influenced by it. That's what I don't.
Well, dude, I cringe. Honestly, I cringe at classical nerd composer dudes who like. That's the one like metal thing that they know is Meshuggah because it's so complex. And I'm like, bro, I'll play you some stuff, dude. It's like you just heard Meshuggah, like that's your.
I mean, to its credit, it made such a huge impact in the world of music, period, that it spilled outside of extreme metal into just everything. And so that's why you get these people from other genres who are like, oh, that's the one metal thing that's cool because that's what they heard. And it is fucking interesting and unique.
It is.
It's just that like it became just the sound of today. And it's a pretty boring sound. I mean, like it's cool. It's really cool what they do with it. But just that mid-tempo with the fucking quarter note on the cymbal, and giving everything the impression that it's just in 4/4, where there's like these phasing rhythms.
It's literally the opposite of what I like about complicated music. It's just to make it line up over a thing. I'm like, that's literally not what I want. I mean, the opposite. But anyway, yeah.
It takes away all the feeling of like exceeding itself and billowing out of its own boundaries, and it takes away all the energy. Let's just say for me, and it gives it this great fucking groove, and it works live. And I mean, I think even the Meshuggah guys were like, we are just trying to make a cool AC/DC riff.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's like it works on that level.
Dude, it's not billowing out of itself, dude. That is so yes, that's sick, dude. Yes, I know what you mean. I mean, that's a sick way of putting it. Like complex metal riffing as like excess. Like you're just bursting. There's just this sense
it's bursting
of
out. Yeah.
There's
and,
this
and
sense.
so
Yeah.
All the death metal that I like these days is that Southeast Asian brutal death metal, where like the Indonesian, especially the Thai bands, the Siamese brutalism scene.
Dude, what is it? Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
this is like ecchymosis and intricated and cyst gurgle and
cyst gurgle. I know just because of the name and stuff.
Urged is international, but and then my buddy from Indonesia is Perverted Dexterity. I love the name of this band, and my buddy Yoga, who's been releasing some of the Krallis cassettes, is Fetal Bleeding, is a fucking awesome band. So, but this whole scene of bands where it's like the impression of this intricate metal, but they're pushing they're giving it the raw feel, like, and pushing that like through the roof.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's just super fast. It's like the way Erosion of Sanity is kind of like off the rails and like kind of sloppy, and it's like that times 10. Mixed with the suffocation and the
gurgly. Yeah.
Do you fuck with like the early brutal death metal stuff, like Disgorge and Deeds and stuff like that?
The only one that I fuck with is Devourment. If that's what are we talking about? But yeah, I mean, I fuck with it. I don't even fuck with it as metal. It's like I fuck with it as like noise music essentially, and just like it's just like ignorant, like So that's this like Deeds and Disgorge and Devourment all sound pretty different from each other, but they're all in the same kind of early 2000s. Like Deeds is older, but like you're drawing on the suffocation sound, the slams, but with the really technical. Here's the technical word. Let's say intricate. The intricate that kind of stuff. And then the chun 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 chun, the ignorant kind of slammy stuff. Those are the bands that really ran with that. And then you have like the Indonesian and Russian and now totally international scene of bands that are like taking that sound to even crazier realms. So like that's the shit I'm excited about right now. That's the most bursting out of itself metal that I can think of right now is that world, dude. The new standard elite kind of that sort of brutal death metal world. Dude, the Suffocation, man, influence. It's so deep, man. It's so deep. And dude, New York, man, New York. Yeah.
Because New York, you have those guys, and you have Immolation from Yonkers.
That's the ultimate. That's my favorite death metal band, period, is Immolation, man. I mean, dude, New York has groove, man. It has groove in death metal. It has groove in hardcore. I mean, it's like, it's almost like the history, it's like rap. I mean, it's like, that's almost, the tradition. It's like,
New York's always had the groove and the kind of the ignorant blue collar angle, but also just these fucking weird creative bros that made this super intricate, like more detailed and interesting than it needed to be. music.
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, this is the thing, with like training versus like lack of training, or even almost just getting into like what is training. I mean, like, but like, what do we even mean when we say that? But it's like, yeah, with like, hearing like immolation to suffocation. I mean, if you told me that those dudes studied classical music and counterpoint music theory, I would totally believe you. If you told me that they didn't know what a C major chord was, I would also believe you. I mean, it's like you don't know how people
you don't know.
And maybe the drummer, went to Juilliard, and everyone else like literally doesn't even know it. It's like,
and dude, that might be part of the reason that death metal has this like bigger reach outside of the musician-y crowd. That might be part of it.
Yeah, no, that's like,
because it's not essential to the experience. The experience is immediate. The brutality is immediate. So if you're into the texture and the vibe, you actually don't need to really be like super educated on like what's happening musically, but it's just this huge bonus if you are. That like all this work is being put into the and that's one thing I love about these like hyper brutal death metal bands, is that there's so much work going into the music, and then a lot of these bands now, they'll just have the pingy trash can snare where it just completely obscures everything. It's like, we fucking did that. Like it's both. Deal with it. Like, we put all this work in and you can't hear any of it, and fuck you.
Well, that's yes, dude, that is exactly when did I get into this same topic of like yes, on another one of these live streams. It's like an issue of like preciousness almost. You know what I mean? It's like if you have all this technical
you're simultaneously stuff, the most precious and the least about what you're doing.
Well, it's like all the work and then just being like, like I'm not, like I ain't no better than no one else. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like I'm not better than you.
No,
like,
so I think that brings it. Metal is death metal especially has always had like there's a little bit of it's a club, and if you're not in the club, fuck off. Sure, that's there, but it's also come into the club. Like, dude, if you're down with how brutal this is, like, respect.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, I actually think about there's a like lo-fi like pop type stuff, or like it took me years to finally like check out the Ariel Pink stuff that was actually, I don't know what that is. Sick. You know Ariel Pink? You don't know?
I don't know what that is. No.
Oh, you don't even know who that dude? I've
never even heard of it.
Dude, amazing. He's a guy. Whatever. He's a guy. We don't need to. It's not so deep that I gotta like fill you in on what it is. But it's like
lo-fi pop. I mean, that sounds
like, I mean, lo-fi, like hazy, like sort of psychedelic pop stuff. But just he got famous making like these really like very lo-fi 4-track stuff, but it's like insanely crafted, highly arranged, like interesting song structures, but it's just filtered through like this slacker, like not giving a fuck thing. That's just
awesome.
It really has a certain atmosphere to it that I didn't get for years. I finally like this. That's what it is. That's what this thing is. But
dude, I should check that out, because I mean, like I'm saying, so there's this brutal death metal that I've been super into, and then all the black metal I've been listening to is like the most just inept, like awful recordings where you're just like, are there drums? Like that's right. That's the shit that's really inspiring to me now, is like whether or not the musical ideas are there, the texture is just like so compelling and mysterious that I just like want to fucking hang with it.
Yeah, totally. The thing is,
I can't deal with anything that's too clean in metal now. Like, it's funny because I spend my whole job like doing these like very professional recordings, and it's like that's the shit I kind of can't listen to.
Well, you maxed out on it. I'd say it's so much though about like, I don't know, the suffocation type stuff, and so much about death metal is stuff kicking in, right? I mean, whether it's technical or not, I mean, even if it's not like suffocation, like breakdown, that's like real slam, like brutal stuff. But even if just Morbid Angel, old school shit, I mean, it's like there's a thing of like it kicks in slower, the fast part kicks in. With like Obscura, bringing it back to that, I mean, there's some of that, but it's like when I listen to that, what gives me goosebumps, I'm not getting into parts where it's like, oh, this is the part. Like, it doesn't.
Dude, I'll show you something.
The whole thing is the part,
Yeah, no, it's okay, here we go. Yeah, because like I'm saying, it's put together in this collaged way. So there's not this sense of like, here's the beginning of the song, here's the middle, here's the end. I mean, that's kind of there just by how they arrange the riffs, but like, here's the structure for Subtle Body, right? I just wrote the structure sheet for when I was practicing it.
Okay.
Every riff goes 4 times, except this one, which is 2. And it's just this different ordering of all the riffs. So you get melody, verse, what I call the corn riff, verse riff, melody riff, verse riff, corn riff, obscure riff 4 times, the tight drone riff 2 times, the obscure riff again 4 times, then the corn riff, then the verse riff, then the melody. So you're getting what's interesting about it is you're getting like if you have A, B, C, D riffs, you're getting A into B, B into C, B into D, but then you're also getting like C into B at one point. A into C. So you're getting every transition of musical ideas.
Yep.
And if you wrote a song just beginning to end, you like wouldn't think to do that.
I wouldn't. And that's sick. I mean, yeah, it's very like modular, you know.
Modular. That's a good way of
putting it. It's a modular approach. Someone in the comments wrote that. I think that might have been Juan.
Oh, dude, what's up, Juan? I think I saw Juan at the show, like from a distance, but I didn't say hi to him.
Oh, you got to know Juan, man. He's up in all this stuff. Or actually, but I think there's a couple of Juans. Nice.
I can't remember the Juan that I know. I can't remember his last name. So
yeah,
50% chance.
I'm thinking of Juan Borjas from Miami, but yeah. Let's see. Do we have all right? We got some questions here. Let's see. We got question wise. We've got what do you both think of Imperial Triumphant? I think they rule. I wish I haven't like dug as deep into their music as possible. Maybe I could have, but yeah, they rip. What do you like? Yeah, you recorded one of those.
It's like probably the worst band I've ever worked with. No, those guys are my boys. They're awesome. So yeah, I've been actually working with them since the band was in high school. Zach, I think, was like in college at the time, and the rest of the band was like still going to high school. And it was a hilariously different band at first. I had full-time cello. It was Alex Cohen on drums as the session drummer. A fretless bass with like these weird optical pickups. I think he was like fucking 14 years old. And the band sounded kind of like Immortal or something. It was more, traditional black metal.
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, the cellist, the original cellist, I knew him. I heard of the band.
No shit.
Through him because I was doing this I was running this after school rock band class. For high school and middle school kids at the Dalton school where I went to high school. So, and he was in there and he was telling me about Imperial Triumphant and he had like a battle vest and stuff.
Wait, dude, did you go to high school with McMaster and Lev, or were you at a different high school?
Different high school. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
But,
yeah, I didn't.
But you were both like Upper Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Manhattan, private school. Yeah, I think they went to Fieldston or Riverdale, maybe.
That's maybe with Greenberg or something. That's kind of ringing.
I think so, but that's
they actually Greenberg and McMaster and Lev definitely went to high school together.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yes, Imperial Triumphant.
Oh yeah, the cellist. So you knew the cellist. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great dude.
So yeah, so then over the years, it just I remember running into Zach at a show and him being like, yeah, so now I'm totally changing the band to sound like Death Bell Omega, and he basically had the Puron rhythm section at that point. He had both Cohen and Eric.
Okay. I didn't know Eric was even in the band. Yeah,
he was on like two of the records or something, and then it got so weird because Cohen decided to bring in Kenny as a second drummer, but they weren't going to play at the same time. They would just like switch off. So we did this weird EP where Cohen was on one song and Kenny was on the other. And
he's like so generous. He's just like, you want to take half my gig for no reason?
Well, that's like Cohen, right? I mean, he's not like one of these guys who's like, this is my band. I make this art. He's just like, I'm a drummer. Like I do drum stuff and hire me for Malignancy, hire me for Pyrexia, whatever. So it gradually shifted. I think they even did some tours with 2 drummers or a gig, maybe with Krallis. They had like, it was both of them. I can't remember.
Yeah.
They had that one period with 2 guitars where it was Kenny G's son playing second guitar.
Okay. Yes. I knew about this. Yeah. It's
so then they did a couple records without me, and then come back around. They sort of solidified as the trio with Steve as the bass player, Kenny as the drummer, and just Zach. And then that was the last 3 records. So now that's basically like version 2.0 of the band. It starts at Via Luxury, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the classical metal overlap. I mean, I don't know what those guys' training is or not, but I mean, the like horn parts and like the, this stuff, it's like very informed sounding. I mean, it doesn't, it does not sound like, oh yeah, we did a classical thing because that's artistic. Like it's very much like they clearly listen to that music. They know what's up with that.
Totally, yeah. All 3 of those guys are trained musicians at this point, and so yeah, like the way that record starts with that big brass arrangement. Kenny actually wrote that. Kenny wrote that whole song. So Kenny's trained. Kenny writes for the band. I think City Swine is his song too on the next record. And yeah, it's cool. They all 3 of them write. Steve writes. Steve is primarily started as like a drummer and then was like a keyboardist. So he has experience on all the instruments. He plays bass in this very synthy, weird way. And then Zach, I think they all have jazz training. So Zach does like, he does like fucking like background music for hire sometimes.
Word. Yeah.
So he's in that world. So yeah, so they all like have a relationship with like the academic side of music for sure.
Yeah.
And that comes through. Yeah, in a way that, so yeah, kind of tying it back to Gorguts, it's really interesting that Obscura, you're dealing with people that have they're all sort of self-taught weirdos.
I forgot though. You said that Luke LeMay went to conservatory after that record? No.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly where it is in the timeline, but I think it's in the late 90s. So he had the viola, which he played on Earthly Love, but I want to say that was maybe even before conservatory or during, because remember, all that shit's written 5 years earlier.
Right. But he's like in his 30s at that point, or like late 20s. He's already
if he's 51 now, somebody do the math.
Well, he would be 10 years older than or whatever. So he would have been, we would have been 18 when
so he's 28 or something. Yeah. So I think a certain point in the late 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, he does the conservatory thing, and he's mostly doing composition. And that's when you get if anybody knows Wisdom well, the beginning to is it The Quest for Equilibrium? No. The Quest for Equilibrium. That's one of the Luke songs. Has like the fake orchestra intro.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And that's like, I think that's Luke in his conservatory phase.
Yeah.
And around that time, like right after Wisdom, I remember like on MySpace or something finding a couple pieces that he had performed while he was in conservatory.
Are those sick? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, they were sick. Yeah, they were more 20th century-ish, because he's like into, Luke and I are funny because we're both super into 20th century classical, but we're like a little bit like this.
Okay.
Where we're like both super into Penderecki, but like I love the 50s and 60s stuff, like the really dissonant, horrible stuff.
The stuff he's known for, yeah.
Yeah, and Luke like really likes his neoclassical stuff. I think he appreciates the fucked up stuff too, for sure. But like he also really likes the neoclassical stuff where I like totally lose interest.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And like we're both really big Schnittke fans, but it's like I like Schnittke at his most like most modernist, and Luke I think is a little more into the Shostakovich, the more Shostakovich sounding
side of it. Yeah,
he loves Shostakovich, and he loves the Schnittke stuff that's more in that.
I can hear that. I can definitely hear that.
So if you hear the piece that he wrote for Colored Sands, that's much more in the neo-romantic 20th century style.
Yeah. Wait, which one is his on that?
The Battle of Chamdo. It's the string.
The string piece. Yeah.
Yeah, the one where we got fucking Mevos to come in.
Yeah, I know. That's so sick. Yeah.
So that's so I guess it's like the piece on Wisdom. That's right in the era where he's doing that. So Obscura, it's like none of that music had that influence. It really like to drive a point home. I mean, it was like not influenced by other music.
Yeah.
It was just influenced by some dudes trying to do something different and be creative.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the fucking reason it is what it is. It's like people don't fucking approach music that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Making a few rules like that. That's been the, yeah, it took me a while to even pick that out, that it's like, oh yeah, no thrash influence. Oh yeah, no, like the stuff missing. Like I had
and not just dialed down, it's deleted. It's
deleted,
like, no,
yeah.
you don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, that's like,
and it's not like the band couldn't play that way, so they did something different, because you can watch videos of them playing on the 93 Erosion of Sanity tour, and they're just playing the first two Gorguts stuff, and they sound fucking sick. They arguably maybe sound better than the first lineup, because it's like Steve McDonald's like an even more solid drummer. He was like the most solid tempo-wise drummer.
Okay, yeah.
Going back and playing, especially Erosion of Sanity, but Consider Dead a little bit too, if you play over the record, anytime he does a drum fill, it slows down a little bit, and you're like, wait, why am I not flipping onto the upbeat? Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
No click track there.
Let's see what we got in the comments. We got people talking about Imperial Triumphant a little more.
But yeah, no, Imperial is great. Obviously, if nobody's checked them out, it'll like kind of like hit you right away, or you'll hate it.
I mean, if you're into Death Spell Omega, I would say.
Yeah, it's very Death Spell. It's like if you stuck like this jazz Art Deco shit into a Death Spell framework or something, and then had just an insane bass player and drummer.
Yeah, the Juan Jeff says Colin would like do you know Francisco Guerrero? He's like the Spanish Xenakis, super insane.
I don't know him at all.
I don't know Francisco Guerrero. No, I don't.
No, I'll have to check it out.
Let's check it out. I mean, Xenakis.
Yeah, I mean, Xenakis is obviously, we didn't talk about him yet, but he, a huge guy for me.
Yeah. I mean, another thing with Obscura is like they have the like riffs that are built, some of them built on like pick scrapes and like right. I mean, the little like tapping,
extra. What do we call them? Like not extra musical.
Extended techniques. Yeah. Which
and that's cool, because that's a parallel in modern classical, but it didn't come from modern classical. It just came from just fucking around on the guitar.
Yeah. Just make it like having, and not just having it be like an effect, like a pick slide, that like a dramatic effect, to have it actually be the riff is made out of like.
And that's 100% the Steve Hurdle influence. That's
okay. Because you only hear that on that record. And Steve Hurdle is he only plays guitar on that one record, right? I mean,
he does only play guitar on that record, but you do hear it lasting into the first song on From Wisdom to Hate, the song Inverted. It's a Luc Lemay song. He wrote the whole song, but it has a weird extended technique opening riff with the pick. Down.
Okay, right. I guess that's like I thought there was a bend or something, but yeah.
No, it's actually like you're doing it here. I'll show you. It's like this kind of. I'm not gonna do it right, but it's a like.
Okay. Yeah.
You're actually holding the pick and like.
Like that. Right, you're like bending the string with the pick
you're not even fretting, like
fretting it. Yeah.
That's the sound.
I can see. Yeah.
But there's more shit akin to that on Obscura, and that's all the Hurdle influence. The opening riff to the album
is that.
That's the digging the pick into the strings.
It's noise. Yeah, it's like it's pitch, but it's not melodic. It's it's noise elements, extended techniques, but most of the record is
it's like a conlegno, right? It's like using the back of the bow. It's like maybe the most like that.
For sure. I mean, this is one of the things that makes it unique as well. Is Captain Beefheart a big influence of yours? I've
heard it, but like I just never spend any time with that stuff.
Oh
honestly.
Man,
I'll Zappa too. Like I really don't know Zappa. I don't know Beefheart.
I know those are two people that come as a pair. I'm really not a Zappa fan, other than that he's a brilliant innovator and unique. He's a master.
Completely undeniable and
completely
hilarious
undeniable
to listen to his interviews. He's such a fucking asshole. I love it.
I know. But I'm not music, why? Yeah, just like as art. I'm not a huge Zappa fan, but Captain Beefheart, I'll send you this. I mean, Trout Mask Replica, you know, that's the big influential one, but the late ones like Ice Cream for Crow, the very last one. I mean, it has stuff.
I don't think I heard that one.
You will without question be like, just yeah. His other stuff is, there's like elements that are as far out and abstract as Trout Mask, but like, you know, sort of like taken in slightly different directions and stuff. But yeah, that was just a big influence on what I was doing, like, yeah, early 20s when I just got into this stuff. It really was like Beefheart and Obscura at the same time, even without knowing that it was considered the Captain Beefheart of death metal. These things
right.
These things just come into your life like at the same time, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's not a bit like, as much as I don't know that record well, like for having heard it a little bit, it's like a similarly just arresting experience of hearing it for the first time, where you're just like, oh, this is just like operating on its own logic, and I'm not familiar with that logic. Like,
dude, arresting. I've thought you're taking words out of my mouth. I've used that word in the past when I'm trying to think of like, what are some adjectives that I'm really like, I want to be achieving, you know? And like, I mean, brutal is one that we've said, but then, you know, you can be like, what is brutal? You know, like, but like arresting, you're not just talking about a sound, you're talking about a psychological state, you know, of like,
yeah, just being like, here's your attention. Like,
yeah.
Like, stay with it. You know?
I mean, really, especially live, man, to create a feeling for the audience where you're like, while you're hearing this is the only music that exists on earth.
Yes.
There's nothing else. You don't care. Like, you can't remember everything else you've heard. You're not wanting anything else.
I don't want to remember everything.
This is what music is for 45 minutes, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I think about this a lot. People say catchy, the word catchy. I fucking hate this word. Okay. Because to me, it's nothing but negative if something's catchy. Like, if something sticks in my head and doesn't get out, that is irritating to me. What I look for in music, it is for it to be engaging, not memorable, memorable in that I remember that it was awesome. Yes.
The
experience. Not memorable in that I can sing you exactly what I just heard. Like, I don't want, if I can do that, then it probably repeated that part too many times.
Okay. But yet you're like a huge Depeche Mode fan. So what do we do
but I
this?
don't like that music because I remember it. I like it because I can remember the melody. I like it because in the moment it actually keeps me engaged and keeps me guessing. And we were talking about it before with the cover that I did, like the fucking, that Martin Gore, like, that,
oh man,
that like passing tone that I'll like stick in.
It was such a deep cut. Wait, is that released that you did that? Is that?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube
track.
Channel.
Okay. Yeah. On Colin's YouTube. Yeah. There's like an ambient synth rendition of the Depeche Mode classic, Everything Counts in Large Amounts. And yeah, right. I mean, what did you do? You had the synth hold each chord for like several minutes, right? Like,
no, well, basically what I did was I just took the song, I put it into Logic, I slowed it down 400%. So it's quarter speed. Not halftime, but halftime again, right?
Yeah.
And then I did, I guess what Mick calls it, tracing. I did a cover of it. I just went back and played every keyboard part and vocal part on keyboards, and then just removed the original.
Yeah.
So it follows the structure and the melodies and stuff like exactly. I didn't take any creative liberties. The only creative liberties are the sounds that I use, the synths,
which are like super spacey.
So slow, and the drum, and there's no drums.
Yeah. But so yeah, you don't experience a beat really or anything, sort of, but not, you know, like pulse.
There's still tempo. There's still a constant tempo, but I wanted to give it the feeling of just like you're lost in time, like it's just you're in a cloud. So yeah, but I mean, like, so yeah, I'm a huge fucking Depeche Mode fan, but I mean, maybe I like it for different reasons than the mass appeal, which is that the music is like you could sing the chorus back. I don't care about that. That's like beside the point to me. That's okay, but it's never what I seek. It's this other shit that I'm seeking, and that might be there or not.
Yeah. No, this is interesting actually, because
and texturally, Depeche Mode is amazing too. So for me, I think it hit me as a kid, it hit me like texturally. And then I was like, oh, but this also just the music is like just doing these things that I'm like not hearing other bands doing on the radio. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just fucking there for it. Like, dude, Violator was like
Yeah,
a really
that's
captivating record.
yeah, no, we were, I mean,
I was like 8 years old or whenever it came out, you know?
yeah. When I was 10 too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we talked about, yeah, you and I discussed possibly discussing Violator. We proposed that as a possibility. But yeah, it's interesting. I had never thought about that a catchiness, because I typically the word catchy does have negative associations, I think, for me. But then I mean being
it's used almost exclusively positively, which is why
right. You have a catchy melody. I think of it as a sort of damning by faint praise kind of
yeah, that's catchy.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? But I mean, I write stuff that people find somewhat catchy, or they you know, so memorable melodies. I have to work. I don't have a position in mind here, but the idea that you would find catchiness annoying, but then Depeche Mode, if it's catchy, that's not what you're getting from it. That's deep. That's deep to me because it's interesting.
I guess I don't really find it annoying as a thing. It's just, to me, it has no inherent value.
Right. Oh, sure.
That's all.
I mean, there are tunes that get stuck in my head that I don't like. People use the word earworm. That's dark. I mean, that's literally a parasitic metaphor. I mean, you know.
I mean, that makes me think of the terrifying scene in The Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, yeah.
The worms crawl in their ears and then they're possessed.
Yeah.
I still can't like think about that too much.
Yeah. But like, but yeah, like catchiness. Yeah. I mean, I also sometimes I have a tune stuck in my head, and I'm like, you know, how much is this the tune versus how much is this just a certain type of brain pattern, you know, like that's all obsessive or manic or whatever
I think that's ultimately what it is. So your brain's going to latch on to whatever it latches onto. So, you know, it's like when I'm tracking a band all day and I'm hearing the same song over and over again, at the end of the day, I always have that band's songs going like cycling through my head over and over again. It's just, that's what it is. That's gonna happen no matter what. And so I just feel like what's more irritating than hearing a song at the drugstore or the grocery store or whatever that is designed to get stuck in your head, and it does, and it's not music that you want in your life, to me. So I just have this general negative association with it, whereas really I'm ambivalent. It's just like, I like the music I like independent of that, but that tends to be a quality which is irritating to me because I experience it more with music I don't want to be listening to.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's degrees of it too. Because I mean, some music like Gorguts, or even less, even less technical or whatever, Morbid Angel or something. I mean, you do remember the riffs, but they're not like hard to get out of your head. It's not like it's not catchy, it's memorable.
And remembering a riff is cool. Like, okay, if you have a very detailed riff, you're probably not going to remember every detail of it. You might remember the impression of it. And that's cool, because then that's kind of what I'm talking about is if you just come away with a strong impression from music, then all the details don't have to be caught, like don't have to be catchy. Like it's just like, oh, that was sick music. I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
And then maybe you want to parse it in the moment, or you don't. You want to let it wash over you. You can decide, but it's like the music isn't forcing yourself to be remembered. It's just like, I'm here doing my thing as music, and
totally. I do think even regardless of like being a musician or not on that level, but just on the level of like how much you listen to complicated music, even as a listener, I mean, it is easier to remember a Suffocation riff if you listen to tons of death metal. Yes. And especially if you're a musician who listens to tons of death metal, it is going to be easier for you to like, when it kicks in, be like, oh yeah, this part, like,
of course,
rather than So I think there's probably a good number of people who listen to really complex death metal who hear it in a way where they're not remembering parts. I bet. I would bet you, you know?
Yep. I think we kind of said it before, but I think that's kind of that's one interesting aspect of this music where like just the impression of it can be enough for some people. Yeah. And then other people can actually really get into like remembering the music itself and the constituent pieces and just like dive into that whole aspect of it. And that's such a deep world in death metal that's why for all these, like, I feel like just recently I'm like, getting into playing these synths and getting back into electronic music that I haven't since I was a teenager. And I'm just, oh man, I just like fucking got lost in death metal for like fucking 20 years there. Like 25 years. I just was like, oh, what's this over here? Like opened the door and then just like got caught in that room for 25 years.
Yo,
it was a deep room,
I've thought about it. Desert Island, if you were like, like magically you have to live on a desert island, you can only listen to one genre or area of music forever. I mean, if we're going to consider classical music a genre, I would go with that probably, even though it's not what I listen to the most now. If it was this entire second half of my life, I have to listen.
Well, it's kind of not fair because saying classical music, that's like, okay, that's like the last 500.
That's like a word. But even, okay, let's say if I had to choose between death metal in general and classical. Okay. Yeah. My top, if classical music from the 18th and 19th century, let's say that, right? Let's say like Bach through like Wagner or something.
Yeah.
That would be number one, but close second would possibly be death metal. Actually, I mean, it just something about it just never gets old to me, and it's just like the variety with
like as rich if you're going to call that a genre, they're equally as rich.
I mean, just especially Luke LeMay. I mean, he said it in the interview. He was just like death metal. There's so much room in it.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
But it's also very, very fucking close-minded at the same time.
Yeah, I guess the subgenres. I mean, you have to get over a hump, right? As a listener. I mean, as someone getting into death metal, like you do have to sort of like death growl vocals. Like, you just think about when we first heard death metal. I mean, it's like I heard Morbid Angel, I was like 11 or whatever. I didn't immediately love it, but I immediately was enticed. Yeah. And so then you get used to death growl vocals, like, okay. And then you get used to the guitar tone and then these things. And then you're just into the details and you have like all these opinions,
Right. And also like once you sort of understand the mechanics of like what a blast beat is, then you're able to like listen to the music behind it rather than just being like, oh, I can't listen to anything but the fact that this is hyperspeed right here. And that's just, that's all the part is to me.
Yeah.
And you get into these tricky things where death metal, every instrument is making a sound it's not designed to make.
Right. So that's funny. I never thought about that.
Everything's fighting for all the room in the mix. Like the drums take up all the space and the guitar takes up all the space and the vocals take up all the space. And especially in the brutal death metal, the vocals never stop. So you're just getting every frequency from every instrument at once, and so it ends up sounding like a wall of noise.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, man. That's what
if you understand like what to listen for, then it easily could just sound like noise. And that's kind of like you were saying, that's maybe kind of okay too. That's like an aspect of it that's kind of nice.
Well,
this like veil in front of the information where it's just like, fuck you, that's there.
Right. Dude, I love it.
And part of why kind of I start to lose it a little bit when the production starts to get so clean, like in the service of cleaning up the musical ideas so much and making everything more precisely performed to the point where it's like quantized drums and sound.
You lose atmosphere. You lose atmosphere there.
Yeah, so you lose all the human aspect. I understand it's supposed to be inhuman music. That's cool. And I understand the instruments are doing this thing they weren't asked to do. But if you try to push it too much into the clarity that you would get from like electronic music, then you start to like dial down the aggressive, brutal.
Oh,
aspect.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their own balance of what they like there. And and so like to me, my maybe like at this point more older school of thought is that like that brutality and that obscure aspect of it is just as important, and it just has to be integrated in the right way, just like everything else has to be integrated in the right way. It's just another part of the sound of the music that you want, but you want in exactly the way that it works so you get just enough legibility and just enough brutality. And this is the shit I'm really getting challenged with working with Defeated Sanity now. I mixed their last album, and I'm going to work on the next one.
Okay.
Where
Sick.
they're like purely the brutal death metal sound, where it's just inscrutable. But Lilla is this musical genius, and he wants all the ideas to be heard as if it was classical music.
Yeah.
But he needs it to sound brutal and ignorant. We need to have both. And I'm kind of like, okay, I got you. You know,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're like right in the midst of these sonic issues. You know, you're literally hired to like negotiate these
an impossible situation.
Acoustic, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, Portal would be a great example of stuff that, like, do I wish that were more legible? No, I don't. Am I hearing the details of the riffs? Actually, kind of. Well, kind of, though. I mean, I'm hearing them more than just literally noise. It doesn't just sound like noise, but it sounds like churning, you know. But yeah.
Yes, churning, shaped, evil.
There are shapes.
Technical noise.
Yeah. It's technical noise, man. Yeah.
Portal. I maybe this is probably a dumb, like, not accurate thing to say, but I like thinking of them as like the world's only lo-fi technical death metal band.
Right.
You know, the brutal death metal bands are lo-fi in a different way. But Portal, I like it because they have the more organic drum sound. And the fact that they just make this decision to kind of bury the drums on the record and have the guitar be kind of too loud, which gives it this feeling of just you're like in lava. You're just like you're stuck. You're like existing in a plasma, and you're stuck there watching this like Lovecraftian shit. It's
It sounds like just tentacles, like a close up of Cthulhu's mouth, and just this happening. You know, I remember like seeing them live. I was like, is this gonna be disappointing? Is this gonna be
no? It's so sick live.
It's so good, man. At Vitus in 2015, like, one of my favorite shows that I've ever seen. And I remember thinking, just on the level of like things being buried, like the like, fuck you, it's there. The whole fuck you, it's there thing. Like, I remember I'm like watching it, like totally enwrapped, like, you know, not analyzing parts. But then of course, after a little while, it's like, okay, like, you know, so you start to like be like, oh, what's going on? And I just remember like looking at the guitar players, like doing these like really hard to play things. And it's like, it's so the fuck you, it's their thing. Cause I'm like, nobody cares that you're doing that chord. Did you just nail that? Like,
yes.
Was that did you play well? Like, what the fuck? But it's, you know, but it is because there's no way you would hear him miss that thing. But the overall gestalt and the atmosphere of the thing is being generated by the fact that he thinks he needs to nail that. Like, so in general, him trying to do that is making this thing that you can't hear what the thing is. Like, it's like, fuck you, it's there. It does have to be there. Like,
it does have to be there.
And you don't have to. It's like Schrodinger's cat riffs, basically. It's like, is it in the like, you know, anyway.
We just measured it, and yes, he was playing 16th. Yeah, no, dude, like, so that was a huge revelation because so this actually relates to the Gorguts conversation too, because the first Gorguts tour ever that I did was Portal, Gorguts, and Kralis.
Motherfucker.
In 2010, and that was the first time Portal had come over, and it was just a short tour. It was just like 3-4 days, but getting to like meet those guys, see them live for the first time, get their whole like vibe as dudes, and the way they think about music, it was just like it. And then Blackie from Voivod was the sound guy. So nice. It was like this just being dumped into the cauldron of these like sort of legendary, super idiosyncratic metal dudes. And getting to see Portal, like seeing the guitar riffs. I had been really listening to the Outer record and Sepia a lot.
Those are my two. Yeah, those are my two.
Swarth was the new album when they came over.
Oh, sorry. No. I meant Swarth. I meant Sepia and Swarth. No. Outre.
Yeah,
outer, or I always call it Utska. Yeah, yeah.
No, that's actually what the word is, but the Portal guys say outer.
yeah. Utre, whatever, and Swarth. Those are the two. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when they came over, Swarth was the main material they were playing, but they were playing songs from the first two records, and it was their first time over. So it was like, but that was the band with Kevin on drums and Brad on bass, and getting to see the shit played, it was like, yeah, that same impression where you're just like, oh, dude, like I could tell that there was just this amazing shit happening that was just sort of being obscured by just the nature of what it was. And it was like, that was just the confirmation where I was like, oh yeah, this is even crazier than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And great examples, like they have this one riff, and that's on Glummer Funnel from the first album, where there's like that video where he's actually wearing the clock outfit, so you can see it on YouTube, and it has clear sound. But I love it. There's this one riff where it's just up the fretboard, down the fretboard, and I can't remember if it's Brendan or Chris, but one of the guitar players is doing it all as shredding. Right. And the other guitar player is just going.
That's amazing. Like the two versions.
Not both do it the same way there. It's going to be
right. The two. That's, yo, man, that's like weirdly one of the deepest things I've heard in a very long time. I have to like really think about that, because it gets into like smoothness versus like striation. Like to do it the shredding way, you're doing it as like measured squares, and to do it the glissando way, it's just a smooth thing. And you're like, no, you're gonna hear both at once, and fuck you if you don't like get the effect. But it's like, it raises the question. It's like, are those opposites, or is the point that they're opposites, or is the point that it's like exactly the same? Does the fact that you're doing this thing, does that make this irrelevant, or does it make you question whether it's relevant or not? It's like,
it's a completely
that's fucking bonkers, dude. That's bonkers to me.
It's a completely unreasonable musical decision.
Yes, no, it is. But it's like, but see, that gets into that unprecious thing where you're like, I learned how to do it as actual notes, but also who cares? But also we did it.
Yes.
But the who cares might be drowning out the really doing it thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, that's
and their whole vibe, I've never been into like the performance aspect of live music and costumes and wearing certain clothes and face paint and stuff like that. I appreciate all that stuff, but me, I've never like related to doing that myself.
Yeah.
But and so I can be more critical of it. I can point to things where I like it, things where I don't. But with Portal, I think it's so great because they're just this unreasonable music to play.
Yeah.
And then they're just making it way fucking harder for themselves.
Yeah, man. I got it.
Like they can't see, they're fucking hyperventilating in these things, soaked in sweat. Chris has a noose around his neck too. And then they're like trying to like just play perfectly. And yeah, like they'll tune before the show, but then they won't tune ever after that.
The helmet. The thing that the guy was wearing, what's the caretaker, or what the
curator? The
curator. Yeah. The fucking whatever helmet mask thing that he was wearing was gorgeous, man. I think both times they played New York, he had the Pope hat, or maybe the first time it was the Pope hat, and the second time it was the Cthulhu. It was I think it was the Cthulhu. I don't think it was the Pope
I think you're talking about the 2015 that he had the Cthulhu stuff. Did he have the fingers too?
Yes.
Okay,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the first time for Swarth, he was Evil Pope, where he has the Pope hat that goes over his face. And then because the clock from Outer, they just used that one or two times in the show, and it was like an actual hollowed out clock, so it was just too heavy for him to wear.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like I actually found it legitimately scary, even though, I've talked about this.
You can't actually be scared in that environment. Like, I know what you mean. It it's genuinely pretty creepy looking.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's like if you, I mean, there's a lot of death metal I feel this way about. Well, okay. There's sometimes it's like people find the music's scary just because of the backstory of some guy's a murderer or whatever. But that to me is not
like some Lords of Chaos.
Some Lords of Chaos, but that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I mean, yeah, like just not the dudes aren't scary. It's got nothing to do with the dudes. But yeah, like literally just a visual thing that has a actual horror element to it that is actually like, even, you know, you watch a CGI thing or a, you know, like a animatron in an 80s horror movie. If it's a really good one, if it's really good, there is a sense of fear. It just looks scary. You know, I was Born Alive was, dude, that was real, man.
Dude, and to their credit, I mean, that's always been the point of the band, is to like inject some of that real feeling of a creepy horror movie into the death metal, not the way Scream Bloody Gore incorporates a horror movie where it's like, fun fucking campy zombie stuff. It's not, nobody is actually scared by Scream Bloody Gore. It's a rock and roll record.
Yeah, dude, I find Slayer scary now. I was
Hell Awaits.
Dude, Hell Awaits.
Dark record.
It's almost like, and there's something scary.
Butchered at Birth.
Actually, yeah. I never really got
the intro to Butchered at Birth and the intro to Hell Awaits. Those are scary
brutal.
intros.
I never really got that deep into Cannibal, but just but yeah, I don't know, with like Portal and shit. It's like, you know, people kind of hated them, or not hated, but people kind of like, when they became like a hipster thing, and like very briefly in like 2010, people were like, oh, you know, whatever, they're hipster shit now. I was like, dude, I love that hipsters are into this. I love that non-metal people are feeling it. Like,
yeah, because it's got great. Something that reaches outside of that nerdy music aspect, and that's what's cool. I mean, like, they have something to appeal to draw people in, which is like extra musical but completely a part of the music.
Totally. I mean, I wonder if Gorguts, like, I wonder if Obscura ever could have been a hipster thing if it had come out at the right moment. Maybe not. Maybe there's a barrier there where you have to really know about metal to dig it. I can't tell. Like,
but maybe it did. I mean, for all I know, I'm so fucking out of the loop. Like with Colored Sands, I mean, I think you're getting people listening that are like less death metal. So in that sense, you could maybe call it hipster. I don't know.
Good. Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, obviously the hipster thing is kind of a dumb, like it's problematic term to begin with. Like, how are you defining that?
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like kind of an the term is kind of obsolete. But I mean, people who don't really listen to a lot of metal, don't know a ton of metal, and love the music in this art way, like arty way. It's not a denigration when I say hipster.
To me, that completely makes sense for somebody like Portal or Gorguts, because they just like, they stand out beyond death metal. They stand out very much within death metal, but they're so idiosyncratic that they stand out outside of that. Whereas like Defeated Sanity just barely gets outside of death metal because they're too attached to the history of death metal, and they're doing everything they can to push that shit as far as they can, not outside of the boundaries quite. It's like still just within the boundaries.
Yeah.
So like people like I was the new Defeated guitar player is buddies with that jazz guitar player Ben Monder, and
he's so sick. Yeah,
I was excited. I don't know Ben Monder that well. I've known him through Jeff from Dysrhythmia a little bit over the years, but like, I was excited that like Ben Monder got Vaughn, this new Defeated guitar player, into Defeated Sanity. He was like, he gave him a bunch of death metal CDs and Defeated was in there, I think. And I was like, oh, that's cool that like all those years ago, I don't know how long ago, but at least a while ago, at least probably 10 years ago or something, Ben, who's like deep in this modern jazz world, is actually finding a band like Defeated Sanity that's not really poking that far outside of the world of brutal death metal.
Yeah.
And so that's cool that now I feel like maybe a couple more people are starting to hear them that are not like devoted death metal people, but still it's like, it's not just as singularly like arresting in the way we said, in terms of people being like, oh, I don't already have to be steeped in death metal to like make any sense out of this.
Yeah. I often think like, I don't know, like if I were making music that only musicians could like, that bothers me. But yeah, like having the idea that you have to be somewhat steeped in a genre to listen, of course, like, yeah, like what am I making stuff in a genre? But like, I think it's cool to make stuff that like you have to know about that type of music to like that. I think that's, to me, that doesn't feel super limited, you know? Like I don't know, to people who are super death metal fans but not musicians, that's a cool person to get feedback from. But then it's cool to get someone who's a musician but not super into death metal. That's also, you know.
Yeah, no, I think the bottom line is it's like everybody's perspective is cool, and so that's why it's really cool when you reach outside of your usual kind of audience.
Yeah.
And that's why it's nice to have a band where you can have a foot outside of the community.
Yeah.
But honestly, dude, I mean, like, I got so lucky doing these metal bands because metal has this fucking support for it that if like Behold hadn't ended up being as metal, if it ended up being more prog rock, like, I just don't think we would have like attracted a little bit of an audience early on in the same way. It was like the metal connection, and then getting Krallice and Gorguts, Krallice being like this sheath of black metal or whatever, that gives it this shit that people can actually relate to it. Because it's got this already established community for that type of music, and people are like looking for the new thing in that style. Whereas if it's just genreless, then it's just forget it. No one's gonna fucking hear it.
Tell me about it. But
no. So, but the thing is, like, doing a lot of that music still, I see it. It's happened. I still put out albums almost every month, and if it's like kind of not metal, 20 people buy it, and then it's like Krallice puts out a record, and it's like, oh, okay, it's over 1,000 people. Okay.
Yeah. No, totally. I saw a dude with a Krallice shirt at the gym a couple weeks ago.
Lame.
No, it's good, dude. He was moving weight, man. He was like, I think he was benching. It looked like maybe 200 pounds, something like that.
Dude, Krallice needs like more like of a lifting audience. I think. I feel like our audience is kind of puny, like me. Like,
is it?
Like,
I mean,
strength in the audience.
McMaster's kind of jacked, isn't he?
I mean,
sort of. Yeah, I don't know.
I think probably Mick Barr works out the most out of any of us.
Oh, does he? Is he super? I haven't seen Mick in person.
McMaster's all on the stretching shit because like me and him, he's got it worse than me, but we both have a little bit of the same like weird tendon shit in our arm. So he's got he's got that capo, like arm capo he wraps around his arm. And
oh damn, okay.
Every 20 minutes of practice, he has to put the guitar down and stretch.
Right.
He was doing dog walking for years, and it's like ruined his arm. It's fucked up.
Fuck, dude, these day jobs, man. That's crazy because I haven't seen Mick in person probably in like 5 years, maybe, or something. So is he just like shredded, just 8-pack now and shit? He's so funny. Just weird.
No, I mean, he looks basically the same, but it's just like he actually like has a work. He's like, yeah, he's like, Colin, I was listening to your new whatever album. Like, well, I was working out, you know, he actually works out.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. You get to a certain age, you have to, or else you're fucked.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to start like disintegrating if I don't just like get some fucking cardio into my life soon.
No, cardio's the shit. I've been boxing and stuff. It's actually like really
no shit. Wow.
It's the cardio situation is just, you can't not go hard because you're just no, like, you know, but yeah, man.
Brutality.
What's that? Speaking of brutality,
brutality, boxing.
Yeah, it's actually way less brutal than a lot of sports because people are like really trying to like not
hurt you.
I mean, yeah, like especially like dudes that really could knock your head off are like really good about not knocking your head off because they're like they don't want to knock your head off. Like, but anyway, like well, man, we could talk all day, but I'm gonna have to say that maybe 3 hours is a good limit.
Did we just fucking do 3 hours?
We just did 3, my man. I guess we got started a little late, so maybe it was more like 2.5. But
well, that's definitely shut the fuck up. Like, go do something.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, I actually got to walk the dog. That's actually legitimately what's about to happen. Well, dude, I'm moving back to New York April 1st, man. So we're talking about literally less than a week. And Kirsten and I are driving across the entire country.
That'll be fun, man.
And well, we've all done it.
Are you like in the moving truck driving across, or are you like getting the shit shipped and then you're just taking a car?
We're getting it all shipped and then we're bringing our car.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So around about the 6th or 7th, we're going to be in Glendale.
Hell yeah.
And that's really close to the going through the park to where you're at, man.
Yeah, we'll fucking meet up at the band shell in Forest Park, man.
I've never actually checked out the band Shell and Forest.
Dude, they do shows there, and I've like run into the funniest cover bands. Like I'll just be walking through. So that's the one thing I do for exercise. Like I go walk in the park, and in the summer they have like these just great. Like I was like hearing this beat. I was like, what could that be? And I started watching the song, and I was like, I almost texted Mick like, what song is this? And then it became clear it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers tribute band.
Hell yeah.
But the funniest I saw was Bon Jersey, the Bon Jovi cover band. I stayed and I waited until I heard "Living on a Prayer," and then I left. Dude, Rod Stewart cover band, like really fucking perfect Rod Stewart imitator.
Nice. That's a good thing to be able to imitate. Dude, Bon Jersey, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard because they're already from Jersey. It's not like a version of it. It's like you've made it less than. It's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like it would be like if it was Bon, like, you know, Luxembourg or something, it would make a lot more sense. Anyway,
yeah, they were my favorite.
Yeah. It's a good New York cover band. I don't know if they still exist. What is it? It's a Guns and Hoses. Yeah, like you know that shit. If anyone doesn't know that, it's a Guns N' Roses cover band, and it's all cops and firemen. Dude, Guns and Hoses. Guns and Hoses.
That's so stupid. It's amazing.
That is, dude. I mean that's. I like it. I have to give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up.
Do you are you familiar with that band Yakuza?
Yeah, sort of. What are they? They're like you
heavy,
remember them
right? From back in the day.
They're like grindcore, kind of, right, or something.
Kind of. I mean, like they've sort of had their own thing going, but Bruce was the singer. He also played saxophone. That was kind of like the memorable thing, maybe to some people. But in any case, Bruce also was the singer, or probably still is, the singer in a Led Zeppelin cover band called Led Zeppelin 2. Perfect.
That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah. That I got it.
Dude, I saw them play Irving Plaza, and it's like, you know, I toured with Bruce a lot and heard him sing, and I was like, yeah, he had like a style that fit the band and stuff, but like I never thought of him as like an amazing singer. And him doing Robert Plant, I was like, Jesus, he's like a really good singer. Like,
yo, man,
I was like, this cover band is awesome. They sold out Irving Plaza. I was like, wow,
dude. You know what we need to do? We need to start a cover band, like something like just like a Morbid Angel cover. Something start as a cover band. And you know that it'll just morph into like the most original, sick, like just starting from the point of view of like we're not even writing our own shit. Yeah. Within a year, it'll just be the most original, amazing shit.
Do you know about the Black Sabbath cover band that Mick and Greg Fox and Angel and
yes,
Brad and stuff are in? Yeah. So Mick's been trying to get that to turn into a real band the whole time. He's like, or even to do something a little different. He was like, okay, for the Halloween show, let's do dancing songs too. And just like nobody wanted to do it. And he's like, yeah, come on, they even did a recording where they just played the Black Sabbath songs. And he's like, come on, let's like write some stuff.
It would be a really unique, I mean, just that lineup is such an interesting, it's really something.
Just the other day, like, so the Suffocation show, the band that headlined is Death to All, which is like all these old members of Death playing the Death catalog, but with my buddy Max as Chuck Schuldiner. And I was thinking while I was watching the band I was like, oh, this is a great band. You guys should make a record.
Yeah, just do that.
Like, this tribute shit, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's how bands used to be. I mean, like the Beatles, you start by being a cover band. That was
Yes too. We were talking about Yes. The first Yes album is like half covers, or most.
Yeah, I think like before
60% covers.
Before the 80s, it was like a thing where you had to prove your chops just playing covers. A lot of the time, I think not in a snide, shitty way, but like honestly, a lot of like these like derivative, like just like a new band comes out and it's like, so you also sound like Joy Division for the 9 millionth time. Like, why not just be a Joy Division cover band, but have that not be considered lame? Like actually have that be a cultural thing where you're like, yo, I'm going to see, you know, Goy Division, whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, that's a whole other joke that could be done. Right. But yeah, some shit where you're just like, yeah, like that's considered a non-lame thing to do, and it's considered a not lame thing to see because you're like, I love Joy Division. These guys do it great. And then that band sticks around, they play most of Unknown Pleasures, then they're just like, here's an original. And you're like, oh, that original is good. Then it becomes more and more originals. Then after a few years,
you can just gradually fucking before anybody knows it, it's a real band.
And then it's Interpol or something. I mean, they were amazing and they became Interpol without doing a bunch of Joy Division covers, but whatever. This could be a culture to normalize. We're always talking about we need to normalize. Let's
No, that is what needs
normalize
to be normalized. Normalize cover bands.
normalize cover bands, man. Enough cover band shaming, you know. So yeah, bro. Much love, much respect.
This has been fun, man.
It's been super fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show, dude, and I can't wait to see you in person, man.
We'll hang.
All right. I'm going to I will do my last I'll say goodbye and then I will how do I cut you out so I can do my goodbye?
I don't know. I can just leave. So should I leave?
Sure. What an unceremonious
All right,
goodbye.
bye everybody.
All right, see you, Colin.
Peace out.
Yeah. Colin Marston, ladies and gentlemen. My only goodbye is thanks to everyone for coming by, but also Last Things Patreon. There's the Last Things Patreon link below this. I mean, not right now, but when you watch, if you're watching the archived, link version of this, you'll see the Last Things Patreon. There's also going to be a link for the Discord if you want to learn join the Last Things Discord, and some other links. I can't remember what, but especially the Patreon. Because I'm gonna be doing these more. It's not just the streams. If you're tuning into this channel for the first time, it's like I also do check out the other videos on the channel. I do these like sort of music history things, educational, like lessons and stuff like that. I do exclusive things like that if you are a Patreon subscriber. So you get like guitar tutorials, music history lessons, XYZ. So yeah, all right, more to come. Peace, everyone.